exactly this. Okay, I think Kevin's trying to get in. Let me see what else I told him. Oh, I also we're gonna go over a tax return. We're gonna cover depreciation, mileage, Schedule C, and things like that. So with that said, anyone else, do you have anything that you would like him to cover? Okay, so we'll go ahead and have Kevin. He should begin in a minute. He's getting everything ready right now. We also, so what I have you here, so right now we are doing two different trainings. So now we're going to be doing the training for the all the people that's using the online software. And then we're going to be doing our training for the people that are using the desktop software. We will be having our continue education training on January 7th. That's a Saturday. We decided to do it in January instead of December like we normally do, because that way we'll have all the updated information, all the different updates. By then, we should have all the updates, so we'll be able to cover that.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I know one of the first questions, and so I want to kind of clarify something. So one of the first questions I saw in the chat this morning was talking about downloading the software. And I want to kind of clarify a little bit what this software is and what it does. So this is a web-based software. So there's nothing to download or install on the computer unless you're using one of the scanners. There's an IPEVO scanner. You may have to plug that in and do a driver install or something like that, or the signature pads. But in terms of the software itself, there actually is nothing to install. There's no networking because the entire thing is web-based. You're able to access this software from anywhere in the country. As long as you have access to the internet. If you can get to ESPN.com or Facebook.com, you can access the software. It's that simple. I do know that there will be some people who try to or would like to be able to use their phone. The software itself is not mobile friendly. In that regard, I tell people if you want to use your phone to log into the software, I wouldn't expect to try to do a tax return in it. If you just need to get a status update for someone or maybe send them an email copy of their tax return, that's probably something you might be able to do from a phone or tablet, but I definitely wouldn't be trying to do a full tax return in there. Okay. So we're going to start here. Give me 1 sec. I just want to move this off my screen. There we go. I'm going to start in the dashboard. This is the first place you go as soon as you log in. We're going to talk about what you see here and what information is valuable to you here. Okay. One of the things that you'll see first is this message board, and you'll see it scrolling. Generally, we're going to post into the message board anything that's related to the software or if there's updates from the IRS or things of that nature. Just kind of general messages you'll see in the message board. Above that is where you'll have your return count. So this return count tells you how many tax returns you have in the system, right? The ready to e-file shows you all of the returns that are marked complete, which will make a lot more sense when we get to preparing a tax return, but are marked complete and have paid. They just have not been sent, which means this return is ready to be e-filed, but it has not actually been e-filed. Okay, we go back to the dashboard. You have checks to print. You will print checks directly out of the software. Very easy. There's no printer configuration really. It is if your computer can print, then you can print out of this software. From a support end, we very rarely have to deal with any software issues. In regards to printing, that stuff generally just prints very well.
Kevin,
Yes.
1 second. Let me check with my Spanish speaking clients to make sure that they following everything you're saying. Vanessa, ¿tú tienes alguna pregunta? Vanessa? I think she's not able to. I think she probably don't know how to take it out of mute. Go ahead.
Okay. You also show the number of appointments, the returns that are marked complete but have not paid. That's sort of the top toolbar here. Above that is what we call the top bar. And I'm trying to use phrases that we will use in support so that when you call and we say, okay, click in the top bar, click in the left toolbar, the dashboard menu, you'll understand where we're directing you a little bit more, especially that first year. So in this top bar is where you have a lot of buttons. And that's the best way I can sort of describe this. The first one I want to look at is this login to prior year. So this login to prior year will allow you to log into prior years. By default, it starts with the current year and the prior 3. I don't know why we're showing 2015 on this account. But if you need to go back further than that, just get with Anna and we can make that happen. So if we go to 2020, for example, and we click log into prior year, it's going to open in a new tab and take me directly into the prior year software. So I can operate out of 2 years simultaneously. 1 second here. All right. Something's going in. Okay. So that's how you access prior years. So you don't have to download anything. There's nothing to go back to. If you need to go do a return in 2018, you just click that login to prior year link. You click 2018, you click login, and it will take you over to 2018. Okay. Pretty easy stuff as far as that goes. Excuse me. Up here at the top, we have a button for support. This actually will change before the start of the year. We are going to put a live chat button here so that if you are in the software at any point, you can click up at the top and click live chat, and it will start a live chat with our support team. I'm going to skip over the 2022 tax year bank enrollment because we're going to do that in just a second. You can click remote support as well. So if you're on the phone with someone in support and they say, hey, let's go ahead and get a remote, come back to the dashboard, or what if you're on the client screen, as long as you're not actually inside a tax return, you can access this remote support button. It will open a window and give you a link for us to start that remote support session. Quick account setup. So I'm going to go through sort of the office setup quickly because honestly, it's pretty easy. It is not overly complex at all. So if we do quick account setup, very first place it's going to take us is to prepares. If we need to add prepares, if we need to reset a password, things of that nature. And we have actually modified this recently so that if your preparer doesn't know what the password is, they can come to you as the office owner or the office to someone who is an administrator. I'll say it that way. Someone who has admin access, you can click reset password and you can change the password and you can give them a new password. They don't have to go through a password reset process. Now, if you're not available, whatever, there is still a password reset process on the login screen that they can go through. Okay. So to add a new prepare, pretty simple. Add a new prepare. You're going to create a username. Usernames are unique, not unique to your office, but unique to the entire system. So if you try to put John Williams, it's likely that you're going to have to do John Williams 14 or John Williams 26, right? Because it won't be unique. So you'll create a username, create a password, give them a password hint. Then you're going to start entering their information. You'll enter first name, last name. The prepare type always seems to throw people for a loop a little bit. So I want to look at these. Most of you will be registered tax return preparers unless you're an enrolled agent. I don't think we have any attorneys or CPAs. If you have someone who does not have a P10 and is not preparing tax returns, they're just entering information on the client data sheet or the dependent information onto a return, you can give them a data entry only, and it makes the PTIN fields no longer required.
And
Okay.
Kevin, to add to that, more than likely that person will be your receptionist.
Yeah, someone like that who is not actually preparing returns. Because I want to be clear on this with you guys. If they go past the entering client data in terms of names, addresses, things like that, anything that's on the personal information sheet inside the software or the dependent, they can do ID and they can do dependent information. If they touch an actual IRS form, they're required to have a PTIN. That's the best way I can say it. If they hit a W-2, they're required to have a PTIN. If they hit a 1040, required to have a PTIN. If they hit something that is an IRS form, they are required to have a PTIN. So once you do that, most of you guys are not going to have power of attorney things, that kind of stuff. These are all specific for New York's. If you have exclusions, if you have your NYTPRIN, New Mexico requires preparers to have an ID. California does too. Down here is the user options, and this is where you get to decide what they have access to, or what they can do. So do you want them to see a list of all of the tax returns, or do you just want them to see their returns? They are not the preparer of record, and this is answered no. They will not see any other returns that are assigned to someone else. Generally, I'm going to give you sort of an overview of how I recommend setting it up. But again, this is personal preference. I always say yes here. I do not let them delete client records or firm records. I do let them modify the invoice pricing, file amendments, print tax returns. You want to leave this disable view print config unchecked. It's one of those things I'm trying to get them to remove, because if you click this button, they will not be able to print. It's that simple. They won't be able to view the forms and they will not be able to print them. And then I do email tax return. That's the general things that almost any preparer is going to need to do. Modify invoice pricing allows them to give discounts. So if you don't want them to be able to do that, then you can just uncheck that box and they won't have that ability. I think generally, though, you will want them to be able to file amended returns, print tax returns, email tax returns. Those three for sure. And then access to change preparer in the return, which means if that is unchecked, they do not have access to change a tax return to themselves or to a different preparer. Someone with that access would need to be able to do that. So I generally leave that unchecked. But again, it's a matter of how your office is set up and how you guys want to do it. On the privileges, this determines what they can see. And generally, I leave it right about here. There. That's generally how I have it set up. You want them to be able to access clients, so you got to give them privileged clients. If you allow them to e-file returns directly, then you want to make sure they have access to e-file. If you don't, you want to make sure that's unchecked. The scheduler lets them book appointments. Letters lets them get pre-session letters, if you will, post-session letters, and I'll show you guys what those letters look like in just a minute. The bank is only bank enrollment. So I generally would say you probably are not going to give preparers that level of access if you are the owner. Reports, kind of the same thing. There's just some things they should be able to see and some things they shouldn't. Generally, unless you need them running reports, they probably won't be. Forms, setup, you probably don't want them in the setup. Tools, you do want to give them access to, and I'll show you why when we get out of this, and we're going to go down the stuff on the left-hand side, and I'll show you exactly how that works. So it's pretty that straightforward. So once you do that, it's going to take you over to the security questions. I'm going to show you what that looks like.
Kevin, before we move forward, guys, please don't be shy. If you have questions, now is the time to ask those questions, because it will be hard for us to kind of assist everyone on everything. So please just ask questions right now if you're stuck or if you're not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Please don't be shy at all. I'm here to answer your questions.
Yeah, that's what this training is about. So ask away.
Yeah. So when you get to the security questions, my advice to you is skip them. If you skip them, then when the preparer logs in for the first time or anytime after that, it's going to prompt them to complete the security questions. Same thing with the login security. The only thing I do here is I activate login code. And this is for me because that's who I'm logged in. But as a preparer, you'll get an option that allows them to set up that two-factor authentication. You're going to want to do that for them. The IRS requires two-factor authentication. We give you a way to kind of get around it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'm actually going to show you guys what that looks like because I haven't done it on this account. So I'll show you guys what that looks like after we go through the dashboard, the dashboard toolbar. I'm going to log out and then I'll log back in so that you guys can see what that looks like. You can see the prepare login summary, and this is pretty interesting. So if someone is saying, for example, if you have someone working from home, and they're like, oh, I was working until, I logged in last night at 10 o'clock. Did you? Because I can look and see if you actually logged in. I have no login history, but I can look and see. So if I go this month, I can see the date and time that this person logged in, how long they were in, and what the IP address is. So if they're not at home, they were somewhere else, you know what the IP ranges are, you could find that out. So just a couple of little things for you guys to be able to see. The firm setup, by and large part, this is already done for you. The only thing that isn't is this EFIN status summary, and this is becoming more and more required by the IRS. So I recommend that you guys please do this. Go in to the EFIN status summary here, and the instructions on what you need to do are right there in that blue button. And it's pretty easy. You're just going to log into e-services and go to the page that asks for you the status. When you go to view, edit your application, this screen pops up. We've seen it 100 times. The banks will ask for it as well sometimes. Just click print, save it as a PDF, and get the tracking number that's at the top of it, and you can upload it. If you get stuck going through this process, please don't hesitate. Call support. We know exactly what to do. Okay. We get to pricing. And on the pricing end, you've got a couple of different options here. You can do a fixed rate for all returns and say, look, I want to charge $4.50 for every return. I don't care what's in the return. Fine. You can do it that way. You can set it per form. So the way this per form is set up right now, I'm on all the main forms. So these are the 1040 forms and the schedule associated to the 1040. But up here at the top, I can change that. I can change the schedules and then put in my pricing for the schedules. I can go to others. And that will give me those other forms like the 1099Cs or 1099 NEC if you're charging for those by form, usually income forms, right? Then you can go to worksheets, and there's a bunch of different worksheets in here. Schedule H worksheet, Social Security, benefits worksheet, 6251 exemptions, capital loss worksheets, those kinds of things. Or you can come all the way to the end and just go to show all, and it will show you every possible form that is in here that you can charge for. So you can set your pricing if you're doing that. If you had a billing scheme, before, you can just look at that one and copy it over, or you have the ability to set the price manually after every return, which means when you get to the payment section, it will ask you, what do you want to charge this customer in prep fee? So again, just depending on how your office is set up and how you guys want to do it, we have it set so that you can do that multiple ways. I'm going to leave it set price manually after every return because I don't want to fill it all out. Now, when you go to the state pricing, you have the same options, right? You can do a fixed rate for all states. You can set an individual price per state or by state. So if I want to charge 125 for California, but I only want to charge $60 for Illinois, I can set it by state. Okay. You also can set the price manually after every return, or you can set the price per form in each state. My advice to you would be stick to one of the first three. Either do a fixed rate for all states or set the price by state. Or you can set it manually, but generally I think people fall into one of these two categories. If you're doing a lot of states out of state, my advice to you, just from a personal thing, if you're doing New York returns and California returns, I probably would charge more than if you were doing Louisiana returns, for example. Louisiana and Oklahoma are pretty straightforward. California and New York are pretty complex. So just my advice there. You can preset discounts. So if I want to give a veterans discount, I can set that, and I'm giving them, you know, $50, whatever it is. And then I can add that discount, and it will show up when I go to the modify invoice, which I'll show you guys later. Same thing with additional charges. If I want to set a default charge for, let's say, a prior year return. And look, I'm doing all prior year returns for $250. Okay. I can add that as an additional charge already in here, and it can save. Now this
question, Kevin. So I saw that you have marked federal, right? And then you put the fees. So if I wanted also charge for the state for prior, that means I got to do what you just did. Oh, I got to stay next to it.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah, and that's how I would do it. I would do prior year state. That way you know what it is you're looking at. So now you have prior year return, prior year state, and it tells you what it charges to. So if there isn't a state on the return, then you can't. I don't think I don't think that additional charge will pop up.
Right.
So generally, I tell everybody, look, just put the charges on the federal, unless you're charging specifically for a state over here, right? Otherwise, I would leave it on the federal because every return is going to have a federal. Maybe they had a state last year, but they don't this year. If that's the case, then you would have to go in and manually add, which you can do. And I'll show you guys that when we get into, when we get to the end of a return, you can add your own fees at that time. This isn't the only place you can add them. This is just a place for you to add some default ones, right? If you know you're offering veterans, for example, a discount, or you know what you're going to charge for prior year returns, you can add that in there ahead of time. So when we go to this invoice config, by and large part, this is going to be done for you. There's not a lot to it. This just lets us set the prefixing for your invoice so that you have the right invoice numbers. The only other thing that I want to say is you two things. One, do not fill this out. Do not check this box where it says to treat all bank products, all bank payments as an invoice until fully paid. It will require you to get reports from the bank and the amount that you got paid, and then come back and pay out the invoice. It's just not something I recommend doing. It creates extra work for you that you don't need. You already are running bank reports for bank product payouts, as opposed to it coming out of the software anyway. So I just wouldn't change that process. This last one I would check, and this will give them a detailed fee disclosure on the bank products. And it's actually a page that they can sign that shows this is what all of the fees are. This is who they get paid to, and you're agreeing to this and you're verifying the information. And I'll show you guys what that looks like. If I can show you what that looks like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I may not be able to because I don't think I have bank enrollment done for a prior year. I don't. So but I do have, well, sorry. So in that quick account setup, once you get finished with all of that, you're done. That's the extent of the setup. Now there are some other things in the setup.
Anybody has questions? Sorry, Kevin, I don't mean to cut you off. I just want to make sure. Oh, we got a good group.
I do have a question.
Okay.
Okay, what about previous tax years? Since this is a new software, would they be able to just transfer with our EFIN to this new system, or are we still using the old one for previous tax years?
Really good question.
So the short answer is no. No, we can't transfer prior year information into prior year information. It just no software works that way, right? It's just not. There are encryption keys and IRS rules about moving taxpayer data. The IRS limits the scope of what we can move. We can move anything that is not entered onto an actual tax form. That's the best way I can say it. So the same things that your data people, your data entry people can do, that's the stuff we can move. We can move personal information, contact phone numbers, addresses, email addresses, those kinds of things, and dependent information. And that's sort of where the line is. Once we get to a form, then the IRS starts having a real major issue with it.
Okay.
I think she also asked, so I think you also asked, let's say if you had to do someone's prior year tax return, you will be able to do it in the software because you're going to be able to download all the prior years for the software. Was that your question?
Yes, that was part of my question, exactly.
Okay, yes. You're gonna get it for free. You're gonna get all the prior years for free. And when you start let's say the people that you did last year, they're gonna be downloaded into this software. So when you put the person's social, it's gonna prompt you so for you to transfer over the information. And what Kevin said, the only information that's gonna transfer over is gonna be like the data entry. Kevin, am I right on that?
Correct. And so that's where I was headed next, was the second part of that question. The first part of that question is what we call a conversion, and we'll be ready to do conversion, no problem. That's converting that personal information, the dependent information, that we can do. That's not an issue. We generally start doing those at about this time of year, because we usually are done by the end of October. There may be a few things that aren't going to carry over. Anything you do after we do the conversion, obviously, is not going to carry over. It's not an automated process. Okay. In terms of the prior year, like I showed you before, you have the login to prior year options. So this is my advice, and this is what I have been telling people for the last few years. If the return exists in the old software already, do it there. If it's a new return, do it here. Does that make sense?
No.
So if you already did their tax return in the prior year, right? Let's say in the desktop software, if you did it for
Okay.
this year in the desktop or in let's say 2020, you did their 2020 return, but they didn't come back and they didn't file. And that return still exists in 2020. If it's already in there. If you go to 2020 and you put in their social and a return pops up, finish the return there. Because there's no reason for you to have to start all the way over. Right? So just do it there. That software is still live, it is still active, and you can still transmit returns. If you get a new customer this year that comes in and says, oh, I didn't file my 2020, use this software. Use the online software and go do that return because they're new.
I get it now. I get
Right?
it.
So any existing returns, do those in that year. If they don't exist, then do them in this. That seems to be the best sort of way I have found to kind of balance the two for a little while, because you're going to have to, at least for a couple of years, you're going to have to balance that because you're going to have customers that, they disappear and then they show up and they need 3 years of taxes done. That just happens. So being able to use both, which you still will be able to use both in those prior years, that's the best way. New returns in here, existing customers in the other one. Someone had asked a question about bank enrollment. I think I saw. Bank enrollment does not have to be done before you use the software. It's just a good idea to do it now because you don't want to have any delays. So someone said, but if they're working from the house and they don't have the desktop software with you, then I would use the online software because you're going to have that problem regardless. You would have that problem now, right? If you don't have the desktop software with you, then there's only there's a limit to what we can do. But I would say if you're working from home on a prior year return and you don't have the desktop software with you, then you can use the online software to do it. There's nothing that's going to prevent you from filing any returns in the prior year in this software.
In the desktop.
Or in the desktop, you can do it either place. My advice to you would still be do it in this software if possible. The reason for that is because then it will carry to the current year. So you're not having to create new return after new return after new return. So sort of jumping back into where we were, there's some things in the settings.
We have a question, Kevin. We have a question in the chat.
I answered both of those.
Oh, okay. Question, Kevin, while you're in this subject, can you want to let them know when would you like for them to call support to do the transfers? Because as you mentioned, we would like to do that early.
Support will call them.
Support will call them. Okay.
Yeah, we'll call them and start that process. Okay. It only takes us a few minutes, honestly, to get in there and do it. And I'll show you one of the other things in just a minute that will be converted out besides some of the taxpayer data. So jumping back in the settings, there are a bunch of settings in here. If you don't want, for example, you don't want your preparer to be able to delete the documents out of the document archive or out of DM docs. If you want them defaulted to interview mode, these are all just optional sort of settings. Generally, people they're not in here a ton, which is one of the reasons it's not covered a whole lot in the training, because we just don't really spend much time in here. Same thing with the firm level information. W7 agent, if you are one, you can plug that information in here. That's pretty much the extent of these things. Now, there is one other thing that is not showing here, and I don't know why, so we'll make sure it is. One of the new things, at least in my build that's coming out in the software for this coming season, is going to be the option for you to add your logo to the client portal. And I'll show you guys what the client portal looks like in just a little bit. But that's one of those options that you would come in here to change. It actually will be right here under client settings. So I'm going to skip bank enrollment because we're going to come back and do that. SignPad, if you are using the remote signatures, these are, or I'm not, sorry, remote signature, the electronic signature pads, these are the models that are currently supported. So if you have Scripto, we have those. Yeah. But there is a driver that you need to install. And it comes up here. You just click this little icon there. You download this, you install it, and you go. If you run into any issues with this, please don't hesitate to call support. We can get this resolved for you pretty quickly. Quite honestly, for most of you, I think you've been using the signature pads in the desktop software. I probably would just call us and just say, hey, I need to set up, I need to get a new signature pad set up. Well, great. We'll take care of it for you. The EIN database. So I actually had this question yesterday in one of my trainings. We will export your current EIN database from the desktop software and import it here. We do have that ability. So we are going to export that information, and then so all of your EINs that are currently in your software will carry over to this software. So that is part of the conversion as well. If you need to edit a company information, you just can come into the EIN DB, double click it, and it'll let you edit. So let's say they move to 121. I can save. If you need to delete one because it was entered wrong, whatever the case is. This does have a dynamic database for the EIN. So as you add EINs in the software, it does save them over here into the database. IP security is generally not something you guys are really going to get into. I would say if you have questions or you want to prevent people from working from home or from working any place outside of your office, contact support and ask us about that, and we'll help you through this. I do not recommend coming in here and doing anything without a support representative, because you can lock yourself and everyone else out of the software from doing this. So you want to be very careful. The support tab here has a lot of the forms and instructions, publications. We have a lot of those things. We do have some for states. So if I go to New Mexico, for example, I can go and link out there. The tax tables are in here as well. Federal tax table, for example, what the tax due is. There's also a lot of links to the IRS, withholding calculators, how to identify notices, refund cycle chart. That used to be there. That's gone now. So these are the things. The quick alerts library is one of the things I like in here, and the IRS changed the code again. Cool. I'll write that up and get that updated. That quick alerts library, when it is fixed, is a great place for you to go, because it gives you all the latest notifications from the IRS about what's going on. So if we go back to individual here, so we're back at the dashboard, right? I want to go up here to the top and I want to click Start 2022 TY enrollments. That's Tax Year 22 bank enrollment. You'll have a little green icon over here. You'll click that to start the enrollment. My enrollment is already done. So I'm going to edit the enrollment so that you guys look like it. What happens generally when you start your enrollment is it'll ask you where, the state that you're located in. You save and continue, and then this is the first page that you'll see after you select the bank. In this case, I'm showing you TPG because that's what I have selected. Okay. Now, here's in the fee information, I think is where Anna was saying there's been some confusion. And so I want to clarify what is in here. Okay. The only two things that will be hard coded and filled out for you are these top two lines. See, I cannot type in here. I cannot edit these. The transmitter fee and the service bureau fee. Now, the transmitter fee is a combination of four fees. I'm sorry. It is there's the transmitter fee, the technology fee, your reserve, and then the reserve fee. It is those four fees. I can't give you specifics other than the transmitter fee is 10 and the technology fee is 19. It's 19.95. So combined equals exactly what you guys were paying on the desktop software. It was 4 and 25.95, right? 29.95. So that all lines up. In terms of what your reserve is, that's specific to every individual person. So some of you may see, 29, some of you may see something else here. Service bureau fee, same thing. Some of you will have different fees possibly in here. I won't tell you specifically what that is, but that's part of your bank product fee. Okay, the electronic filing fee is a fee that is paid to you. This gets paid. This will get paid in your prep fee same thing with the doc press, with the doc prep fees. So if you put a doc prep fee in here, it will get paid to you. Now, the electronic filing fee, there is no fee to do. The doc prep fee can exceed 150. So if I put 150, TPG does charge a fee, and that's what this doc prep fee scale down here at the bottom is. So if it's 1 cent to $50, it's $5. The fee is 5, 7, and 10, and so on. Right?
Kevin, on the electronic filing fee, right? That one gets paid together with the preparation fee.
Yes.
And the doc prep fee also get paid with the preparation fee.
Yes.
So you guys always keep in mind that if you put money there and you charge somebody $200 for preparation fee, what's going to be deposited in your bank is going to be $350 because it'll be the doc prep fee if you put $150 plus your preparation fee. If you're trying to get money in the back end, like a lot of you already do, where you get that check at the end of tax season, that is what we ask you when you fill out your contract, and that's what's added on the transmitter fee.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's what the difference is in these things. Generally, I don't put anything in here. That's just me.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither.
Down in the bottom is where you're going to enter your fee deposit information. So you'll enter your bank name, the name on the bank account, routing number, account number, the bank type, and the bank relationship type. And what they mean is it a personal account or is it a check or is it a business account? So if you have a business checking, you want checking and business. The last question is a standard TPG question, which is, do you want the marketing materials translated in Spanish? Do you want the Spanish versions of the marketing materials? In addition to the English version, they will always give you the English version. In here, this stuff is all pretty straightforward. The only place where I see people will sort of have a question or get a little confused is two things. That's a good question, Brian. The question was, if you enter a fee for the electronic filing fee or doc prep fee, will the customer be charged automatically or is it optional? No, it is automatic. Any of the fees that are on this front page is charged to every customer. There is no option. Prep fees are the only thing that you can adjust. You cannot adjust any fee that actually is on the bank application or part of the bank product enrollment. Your prep fees are the only place where you could make that optional. I guess you could give a discount for it. But no, it's a hard-coded flat fee on all clients. So in here, so there's two things that seem to kind of throw people a little bit for a loop, and then one thing that I just want to point out. The one thing I want to point out is the parent office EFIN will not be your EFIN. That is the master EFIN for IND. Okay, so it's why you can't change it. It's hard coded. You can't change your EFIN either. If you need to change your EFIN, get with Anna. That needs to go through support so that we can change that on the back end. Okay. The business TIN is this. If you have an EIN for the business, you'll enter the EIN here. If you don't, you will enter your social. That's it. In the EIN business name, if you have an EIN, you want to put the name of the business that the EIN is in. And I'll give you an example of sort of one of those circumstances. For my stuff, right? Let me do it this way. Right. So there's an EIN. My business name might be Kevin's Corporation. Right? Because that's what my EIN is under. But I may have a DBA that is Kevin's tax office. Because my corporation does other things besides just tax prep, right? So if I've got a DBA for that, that's where you'll see the difference, right? So if it's the same, that's fine. Just enter it twice. That's the best way I can sort of tell you guys. The office type, all of you guys are mostly going to be standalone. I don't think anybody needs to select anything other than standalone at this point. On the right side over here, it's just phone numbers. Pretty much. I mean, it's all the phone numbers. It's the business type. You know, is it a sole proprietor? Is it a corp, LLC, single member, that kind of thing. Then some general questions about the office. None of these, like the number of people in the office, the number of years in business, number of years e-filing. Website is not a required field. Projected number. This is the other thing that throws people a little bit for the loop. So the TIN was the first thing.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so you just mentioned TIN and EIN. If I have an EIN, there's where I put my EIN, right?
Correct, because that is a TIN. It's a tax identification number. And the reason we label it this way is because there are two different types of tax identification numbers for a business. Some businesses have an EIN, some don't. Some operate off of the owner's social. So if you don't have an EIN, in the business TIN field, you will put in your social. Does that make sense?
Got it. Okay. Yes, thank you.
All right. So continuing on the right-hand side, there's this hold shipment date, and that seems to throw people for a loop. This is not a required field. You do not have to put a date in here. What they are asking is, do you want us to hold shipping you check stock, marketing materials until a certain date? And this is generally for those seasonal offices, right? If my office doesn't actually open, I don't get into my office until December 15th, then I don't want then I don't want TPG sending my check stock to the office when it's not actually open. Right? Most people do not need to worry about this whole shipment thing. I would advise, if you're in a seasonal office, make your mailing address your home. Then you don't have to worry about that. That way, that stuff goes to your home and not your office. So we save and continue, and then we just get into EFIN owner information, primary contact, because the primary contact may not be the EFIN holder. That happens all the time. Over here, I want to save you guys some frustration here because it's a little confusing. This question here says, did you use TPG using IND Solution software last year? What they actually are asking here is, did you use TPG using this software last year? Not any TPG software or any IND software. The answer for all of you is no. So leave this as defaulted to no if that's what it's set on. I believe it's set on, the default is set to no. You want to leave that as no. You want to enter this information prior year. You want to select the bank, and then here you want to select pets cross-link. If you're a new customer, then you choose whichever one. If it's not in here, then just choose other. That's usually what I do. When I train, I show other, but just make sure that selecting the right software honestly doesn't matter a whole lot, but this question right here does, because what they're going to do is they're going to compare you under this software in their system. And if the numbers aren't even close, they're going to reject your bank enrollment. And then you're going to have to come in and answer this question and resubmit it. Okay. So just leave that question where it says, did you use TPG using IND Solution software last year? Leave that as no. Then we get into the business owner information. If they have multiple owners, then you split it out. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Addresses, again, whether it's shipping address, mailing address. Then when you click register bank, now we get to this check administration fee program. I have to be honest, I have never recommended anyone do this. Basically what they're doing is you're charging, if one of your taxpayers wants a check, they're going to charge them $12 for that check. Other than the fast cash advance, we're just talking about the regular bank product, the regular RT. You will get $4 out of that check. So basically TPG makes $8 because they decided to get a check and you get $4. I have found that customers don't seem to be particularly happy with paying a larger fee simply because they want a check. That's what I've experienced. You guys can answer yes or no on that. Again, I've never recommended anyone do it, and that's sort of where I'll leave that. If you want to do it, please feel free. Then you get into the application, you're going to click agree, and then it goes through the service agreement, the terms and conditions, which I know full well. There's probably one person that has ever read these. So once you do that, you click I agree. Now I can't transmit mine because I'm in a demo environment, but you'll have a button at that point that says transmit enrollment. You want to click that transmit enrollment button, and then when you come back out here, you'll be able to see what the status is. Mine says unfinished because I can't transmit. It shows you what the fee breakdown is, and then shows you if they're enrolled. Now, audit protection is not active, but when it is, you'll be able to select the audit protection, go to save and continue. And once it is active, we'll get a guide or a walkthrough for you guys out on that so that you can see how that actually operates. Once you are enrolled with a bank, you will get the check print option in this setup, just so you guys know. Because this is a new account, we weren't using it this current tax season. I don't have an active bank enrollment on it. So, but that's where the check printing will come through. So do we have any questions about the setup or bank enrollment?
Kevin, real quick on the office type, right? If I have a client that has multiple location, is that when that section apply to them?
Yeah, I mean, at that point they could select multi-office. I'm not even sure what TPG uses that for them, because I don't think all of the banks ask for that. I know they like to separate out like service bureaus and things like that, but yeah, I mean, if you've got multiple offices, you can put multi-office. It's not going to hurt anything at all for doing that. All right, so we're good. Everybody else? Cool. All right, so here's what I want to do, and I want to take a couple of minute break. We just covered quite a bit and kind of want to let that stew for a minute, and then when we come back, let's do what, 5 minutes? Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
what time you get back? I don't know.
11:35.
Okay. All right, you guys, see you back, I guess, at 11:35.
Yeah. All right, and we are back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just go ahead and start a new return. And so I want to show you guys where we do that and how we get going. So from the dashboard, you're going to click clients, then you're going to click new return. We're going to enter a social. So on this screen, my advice to everyone is leave this bottom section under the select return. Leave it alone unless you know it's a non-resident or you're doing a Puerto Rico return. What we're running into, and I'm trying to get them to sort of change this wording. This is the correct name of this form, but this is not for your self-employed people that live in the United States. That is for self-employed people that are bona fide residents of Puerto Rico. This is a 1040 SS. 100 out of 100 clients that you guys probably have are coming out of just this standard 1040 form. Okay. So I recommend just leaving it as the default, unless you specifically know that they need a non-resident or they need a 1040 SS. So we'll do save and continue here. And this takes us to the very first screen. This is the personal information screen. So this is very similar to the client data sheet that you guys were maybe used to in the desktop software. So we're just going to plug in some information here. We're going to answer the ACA questions. We'll file this one head of household. We're going to get an address in here. There is a zip code database, so you can bypass the city and state and then put in a zip code. Email address if you want. Daytime phone number. So this is important. There is a texting feature inside this software. So this daytime phone number, for most people, I would say just get their cell phone number for the daytime phone number. If for whatever reason that say they've got a home number and that's something like that, and then you want to get a cell at that point, right? And the reason for that is because this is where they will opt in for those text messaging. If this is marked as work, for example, that goes away. It will only prompt you for that opt-in on a cell phone number, and that is the number it will send to. So you want to make sure that they opt in, say, hey, is it okay if we text you about your tax return or about things in this office? They'll say yes, most of them. You just check the box and then you come down. Now here, the resident state will pick up by default. If that is not the residence, it's picking up the resident state off of the address, right? Because that's the state that we put in. Now, let's say they moved to Texas in January, you're doing their return in February, but they lived in Louisiana last year. Then you can come in and just change their resident state to Louisiana. Okay. Then it will ask, did you live in any other state during 2021? Did you make any money in another state? If you say yes, then you can actually start entering the state information here. You can choose what state it is, or you can leave it alone and not actually answer any of that. You can leave them as default. And when you add states to a W-2, for example, it will add the state automatically. And I'm going to go down here. So once we're here, you could actually have any forms that the IRS have translated into Spanish. You can actually have those translated into Spanish. If they're doing a direct deposit, whether it's a bank product or direct from the IRS, you're going to enter the information here. And so I want to be clear. If they're doing a direct deposit, just put in the bank account information. If they're doing a check, leave the bank account information empty. It's really that simple. The software is going to pick it up. If you have account information in here, and what I'm talking about is not specific to bank products. I'm talking about payments direct from the IRS. So those customers that pay you up front, right? If you put information in the direct deposit information, the software is going to pick it up and mark this return as direct deposit with the IRS. If this is blank, they will leave it as a check. So you don't have to do any extra step to put the routing and account information on the personal data sheet and then make sure that you select direct deposit on the 8879, for example. You just enter it. If it's here, then we know it's a direct deposit. It's that simple. So now we're going to go down to the bottom. We're going to click save. Once we save, you're going to see a couple of things happen. One, we start getting forms added, right? 1040 forms, you see these are bold. Anything that is bold over here is actually attached to the return. You also see that it added this Louisiana tax return automatically. And that Louisiana tax return, if we go and look at it, you will see that it is marked as a full year resident. If that's not correct, you can modify it and change it. I'm going to say no on this. We're just going to go back to the federal. I'm going to change this back to Texas because I don't want to do it. Louisiana state return. And to remove it, that's it. It'll actually remove itself once you change the resident state. So I'm marked down here at the bottom that I wanted these forms generated in Spanish. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, you'll see a list of these forms. You click these blue links, will actually open the form and let you look at the full form. So you can see here that this form is actually translated into Spanish. The 1040 form. I'm not sure what other forms they have. I don't believe the Schedule C has been translated yet, but we can look at that a little bit later. The next step, and this is just how I operate, you guys will find your own process. I go to the next thing on the list, which is the additional information.
Kevin, give me 1 second. Vanessa, si puedes ver el software, te puede imprimir todo lo que es del tax return, te lo imprime en español para los clientes que no hablan inglés. Si tiene alguna pregunta, tú nada más déjanos saber. Okay, Kevin.
Okay. The next thing is the additional information. The additional information is sort of just this extra stuff that the IRS says we got to ask these questions or we got to do these things. Some of this is going to be really helpful for you if you ever catch an audit from the IRS. Okay. So we're going to go through this reasonably quick. The very first question, and this is a question now that we almost can't ignore anymore, which is, did you receive, sell, send, exchange, or otherwise acquire any financial in a virtual currency? Bitcoin, Dogecoin, those kinds of things. The IRS is tracking this, and there are tax implications for buying and selling and receiving virtual currency. So that is one of the questions that you want to ask. Now we're going to move down into the ID information. Do they have an ID? No, they don't. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Then you can start putting in their ID information here. This will transfer over to the bank application if you're doing a bank application. Let's set it for that and set it. Let's see, 27. The next section is about identity verification, and this is the part that will save you with the IRS, because the IRS is cracking down heavy on taxpayer identity theft, and you are required to verify their identity. Most of us don't do it. I'll be honest. So you have two different options. If they are in person and if they are remote, and the process is different for each of these. No, Cash App and Venmo are still done in US dollar, not in virtual currency, Brian. And there is a change to that, which I'll briefly touch on, but I know we'll cover that specifically in stuff related to the 1099K and the Cash App and Venmo when we get into tax law changes in early January. So, did you verify the person's identity in person? Yes. Did you verify that their government ID is accurate? Yes. Is it valid and is it verified? And what they mean by verified is it valid meaning is it not expired? Does it look fake? Right? The second question is, if the current taxpayer's current government picture ID is verified. Verified means you looked at the picture, you looked at the person, and it's the same person. This is part of what you are supposed to do. Like I said, a lot of us don't do it as much as we probably should. But if you do this, then you've got coverage with the IRS when they come in an identity theft verification. You can say, no, I looked at their ID, I have a copy of it, and I verified that it is valid and that it is the person who gave me that ID. Okay.
Kevin, what do you recommend for this section for some of us who do a lot of taxes online, just virtual?
There's a second section. So in this section, if you're doing virtual, then you would answer this no, because you did not do it in person. The virtual actually has a couple of different requirements. You actually need 2 forms of ID on a virtual, and that's IRS regulations. So
Okay.
you need a government ID, and then you need some other financial or utility account, checking account, savings account, utility accounts, loan, credit card. If they have a tax ID, that would work as well, right? You need 2 forms of ID with them, and then you're going to verify if you confirm the records, both numbers,
Okay.
right? Does the ID match the water bill, for example? Um, if anybody's ever registered a kid for school, you know you have to have those things too. So it's crazy.
Say that again,
I'm
would-
going back to in person because I think the majority will be in person. But there is a section for both. So if you didn't do it in remote, then you just answer no. This last question, I have to be honest, just answer no. They're asking if your client has a preference in written communications from the IRS. This doesn't mean that they're going to do this. Yeah, this is a poll question for the IRS. They're trying to determine what languages need written communication from the IRS translated to. They're obviously going to do Spanish. So unless you have a client base that has a different language besides English or Spanish that is heavy, I know there are some. I have an office in actually right around where your office used to be, Anna, where they have a heavy Vietnamese community, so they're answering yes and then selecting Vietnamese, hoping it'll push it up the list a little. But the reality is, I wouldn't bother even answering this question. Just answer no and move on. It's not a required field, as far as that stuff goes. So once you've done that, you've got the additional information in. Now we know this is a head of household return, so that means I got to have a head of household qualifier, which means I need a dependent, right? So we go to the dependent. And this is what we call the Excel view or the spreadsheet view. And all you're going to do here is click add new. So we're going to put in this information. Give me 1 second. So we're going to put in all of this information. Let's see, 2019. We're going to put in the baby social. Oops. If they have an identity protection pin, this is where you will enter it. So we answer a lot of these questions for you by default based on information that's put in, right? We're assuming that if you're claiming this dependent that they lived with you for more than 6 months and it was likely 12 months. If that's different, make those changes, right? If it's no for another reason, no, it was divorce, whatever. If they only live with you 8 months, fine. We won't let you select less than 6 months. And the reason for that is because you can't claim a dependent that lived with you for less than 6 months. That's the rule. Okay. We know that you're likely going to claim this child for EIC, or at least they meet the minimum qualifications, right? Valid social, and they're only 2 years old. Same thing for child tax credit, other dependent credit, U.S. citizen. We get that off of the social, and then claiming as a dependent because obviously you added them. What we don't do is determine who is the head of household qualifier. Anyone who is filing head of household must have a head of household qualifier. It is a singular person. It is not all of your dependents. So on your first dependent for your head of household, folks, check this box that says HOH qualifier. That is going to be who qualifies them to file head of household. Generally, it's their dependent, right? It's their kids. So you want to make sure that you check that box. Otherwise, they're not going to qualify for head of household, and the software is going to tell you they need a qualifier. If you get that verify message, come back to that dependent. Come back to the first dependent. That's why I always say just do the first dependent and make sure that this box is checked. It does need to be checked. Okay. So we're going to add some child care and dependent care expenses. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. We're going to go ahead and add in 3,000. That's what it was. If they have a 1098, if they have qualified tuition that is not on a 1098C, you can enter that here. I have to tell you, if they have qualified tuition and related expenses that is not on a 1098T, I probably wouldn't even do it. Probably wouldn't even put it in the software. The IRS has cracked down so hard on education credits as a point of reference for tax preparer fraud. So I would say if you don't have a 1098T, they don't get an education credit. And I would stick hard and fast to that rule. We answer the rest of those questions sort of for you. EIC, can somebody else claim that dependent for EIC? All of those things. That very last question is about ACA, about Obamacare. So we're going to answer no. We're going to hit save. So now we've got our dependent in, and we're giving you a warning here that says, hey, you've entered dependent care expenses here, but you do need to enter the care provider information on the 2441. So I'm going to go do that now. I'm going to go to the 2441 by clicking that blue link. You see the dependent information is here. Now we just need to add the provider. So we click add new. We're going to throw an EIN in here. Right, and we're going to throw their address. Daytime phone number is not required, but if you have it, go ahead and enter it. It'll save you some trouble. And then the amount that was paid to that provider. And save. You will have one other question you have to answer, and it's right here. It says, did you pay 2020 expenses in 2021? Most people that's no, but there may be a few circumstances in which it will be yes, which is why we're required to ask. So then we hit save, and we're done here. So now I'm scrolling back up to the top. We have no income, right? So now we need to add income.
Kevin, before you get to income, I have a question about the dependents. On the desktop software, you have at the top where you put the dependents that you are applying for earned income credit. But then you have the scenario where you have a parent who only can claim the child tax credit and you're able to put it underneath at the bottom on the desktop. Where is that here? How do I determine here that we're only claiming the...
You uncheck the box that says claim this qualifying child for EIC.
Oh, that's it? Oh, that's
right. Now, if they have a, because that's the key thing, if they're not claiming the dependent as a whole, right? If they're just claiming child tax credit, then you would uncheck that. But to qualify for child tax credit, they have to claim them as a dependent.
Right.
That's not a diverse decree thing. But if let's say they're only qualified for EIC, I don't believe they have to qualify them as a dependent because they can still claim EIC. But generally, at that point, you've got a separation agreement.
Right there.
Right. There's some other reason for it. But yeah, if they're not, let's say they can claim them for child tax credit, but they can't claim them for EIC, you just uncheck the box. And you see the EIC question goes away.
Okay, so vice versa. So if I have a parent that say, hey, my ex is gonna claim the child tax credit, I can only claim the EIC.
Right.
How do you decline the other credit?
You have to uncheck them as a dependent. They cannot claim them as a dependent. However, they can still claim them as a head of household qualifier.
Right. Okay.
So then you would just uncheck claim as a dependent and you see that child tax credit goes away.
Oh.
Right. I can check it, but it shouldn't be checked and it won't calculate anyway because the IRS rule says there's no divorce decree for child tax credit. Like that's not something that can be negotiated. It's EIC that can. Whoever that dependent lives with, that's who qualifies for child tax credit, period. That's the rule. EIC, there's a little more flexibility in the rules. So that's where you'll see that. So it's a matter. So for example, if let's say this dependent lived with this person, right? But they cannot claim them as a dependent. They only can claim them for EIC and they can use them as a head of household qualifier. This is what the screen would look like. Head of household qualifier checked and EIC checked. If it's the other way around, then they just uncheck these. And at that point, they can't file head of household because they don't qualify, right? But if they're not claiming EIC, they can just uncheck it and the EIC questions go away. It's actually, to me, it's actually easier in here than it is in the other way.
Yeah, it is because in the other one, you had to just put it all in a total different section. Does anyone understand what just happened here? Because I know I get this call a lot when it comes to that. Okay, I guess so.
All right, so now we need to add income. So let's go add a W-2. And this is where I show the form search. So in the form search in this top left-hand corner, I can type in W-2. I can type in wage. You can type in anything in here. So if I know I need to do something with a home, I can type in home, and it's going to give me any form that has the word home in its title, right? Or any worksheet that does sale of main home, selling your home, first time home buyer credit, whatever the case is, right? I find that's the easiest way to find forms. I just go W2 and then I click at add, and we get our same spreadsheet look, right? So then we click add new. This is pretty easy stuff from here. It's a W2 like any other W2. I don't know if I even have any. Yeah, I don't have any EINs even in here that I know of. No big deal. So we'll go ahead and put these in. And we're gonna get some wages. Let's do 14.8, and there's a reason for that, but whatever. And then you have all your box 12 codes. This is all pretty straightforward. What I want to show you is here. Let's say this person worked in Colorado. They're a resident of Texas, but they worked in Colorado for 2 weeks, whatever it is. You know, this stuff happens, right? So pretty straightforward W2, right? No big deal there. Save. But you'll see now Colorado gets added, right? Because I have them, sorry, I have them listed as they had worked in Colorado for a short amount of time. When I go look at Colorado, you will see it's listed as a full year non-resident. We are no longer having to guess what form we need to add to a state. The software is smart enough to pick up that if this is a full year resident of Colorado, it will mark this as a full year resident and apply the correct and appropriate forms. If they're a non-resident, it's going to apply the correct forms. So for example, Colorado has a DR 104, which is the resident individual. But you see now we have the part year non-resident calculation. Other states have a completely different form for non-resident or part year resident taxpayers, right? Some states have a checkbox on the form. We don't have to guess anymore. The general information page will tell you exactly what it is. They're part year resident. And this applies even if you go and add a state, right? If I go add Alabama, I'm going to get the option on the general information to mark whether they're full year or part year resident. You know, or a non-resident all the way across. And then I can allocate my income and I can do all the other stuff. This is one of my favorite things in this is the way we handle states, because it makes life significantly easier for you guys as preparers who are not experts in every state. It is an unrealistic expectation that everyone is going to be an expert in every state. I promise you, I've been doing this 20 years, give or take now, and I probably still would need to look up the information to do a South Dakota state return. Yeah, you're never going to be an expert on all states. And so we made this as easy and as simple as we can when it involves states. States basically complete themselves. There are a few states where you'll have to do some additional information on, but for the most part, they pretty much fill out themselves. Whether they're part year residents or non-residents, doesn't matter. Okay. So now we've got our W2 in, and you see we have this giant, huge refund down here in the left-hand corner. And this is where you'll get your federal tax summary. Gives you your adjustments, your deductions, sort of overviews, and then gives you that refund or balance due amount. Now, on this left-hand side, you have all forms and you have filed forms. Filed forms is everything that is currently attached to the return. This is their return as it currently sits, right? So in the desktop software, right? All forms was what you guys would see when you click add form. File forms is what you saw on the left-hand side with the check marks. That's the best sort of way I can explain it. And if we want to go look, see, it'll show you which forms over here on this right-hand side are actually translated into Spanish. The 8812 is translated into Spanish, but the 2441 hasn't been yet. So not all of the forms will be in Spanish if we select it that way. In this case, if I just uncheck this, you'll see all of the SP will go away, right? So now we've done that. So we got a little bit of W-2 income, but hey, you know what? This person does hair on the side. It's their side hustle. But they worked for somebody and they gave them a 1099 NEC. So the same rules apply in this software as the desktop software. Schedules, then forms. You want to add the Schedule C before you add the 1099 NEC. Okay, so we're going to add a Schedule C. If I type in schedule or even start typing it, you'll see I get all the schedule. So I'm going to add Schedule C. Again, spreadsheet view, click add new. And then we're going to start filling this out. Product or service. I have no idea. For the business codes, if you know the business codes, you can use it, or you can pick from list. And so we have a bunch of different, we have all of the codes actually in here. Let's be clear, my code is not going to match what I'm doing because I don't know what that code is, and I'm not going to spend a bunch of time searching through for it. All right. So we got the business name. If they have an EIN, you can put that. If the address is different, we can adjust all of those things. Okay. The key question in here, or when you get down to here, is now we have all the income, right? So we can, from here, now that we have filled out this top section, I can click this blue link to add the 1099 NEC, or I can save this form and look at it from form search. I find it's faster to do it this way. So I go to the 1099 NEC. I click that link. It's going to save that form, take me over to the spreadsheet view for the non-employee compensation summary. And we tell you here, you must create the Schedule C, E, or F, or Form 4835 prior to entering the 1099 NEC. So we do add new. And we're going to go get that 1099 NEC. We're going to put that 3,800, whatever it is, right? Now down here, once I enter an amount here, you'll see something happen, right? So let's go add this. And I want you to watch the reporting section here. Now we have this pick from list link. We also can select where we want it reported. Generally, I would stay out of this box unless you are selecting 1040 line 1 or 1040 line 8 for other income. Otherwise, click pick from list, select where you want it to go, and click use. And we save. And now if we go look at our Schedule C in filed forms, you're going to see the gross sales is there. That's what got carried over. And we don't even have to actually go into the Schedule C to see it. If we want to, we can. So we'll open this up. And I'm opening this up primarily for one reason. So here's where the income is, but it's the expenses. And in particular, I want to look at the vehicle expenses. So if we go down to part 4, this software doesn't have some of the limitations that we had in the desktop software with the number of vehicles. Okay. So if we do add new here, the date placed in service is the date that it was placed in service, not 1/1 of the year. I want to be clear on that as well. And then we put in the business miles. So we're going to say 2,500, and then we're going to go answer these questions. Just the same standard questions that you always have. And you see it gives me the standard mileage amount, right? It's $1,400. Well, what if I want to do actual vehicle expenses? I don't have to leave this screen and go somewhere else to do that. I just click actual vehicle expenses and I start typing this in. It's still showing me the standard mileage rate here. So if I'm in here and let's say I got 1265 and maybe let's see, maybe we had $125 in the rental, and I go look and I'm like, So if I save, you'll see now it's giving me $13.90 in the car and truck expenses. And the reason for that is because because we selected actual vehicle expense, right? $13.90 plus the depreciation, it might be more than the $1,400. But if we just do standard mileage, it's going to give us $1,400, right? I'm going to change this because I want to show you guys. Actually, I'm going to leave that the same. The second piece that we want to talk about in here is depreciation. So if we're in here and we want to go to depreciation, Line 13, we can click the 4562. You can do it from the car and truck as well, but 4562 is where depreciation goes, and this is pretty easy. Add new, pick from list, select, make. If you only have one Schedule C, it will default to that one. If you have multiple, then you need to make sure you're doing the depreciation for the appropriate schedule, right? So we have a section for information on vehicle use, amortization, which most of you probably will never touch, but let's go add some property in here, right? Description of the property, let's call it a laptop computer. And let's say we bought that computer January 11th of 21. Okay. 100% business use. Cost basis on that was $24.50. Okay.
Kevin, while you in this computer thing, so I had a client call me to tell me that I know a lot of people was putting computer when a client told them that they purchased a computer, they were putting it on office expenses.
Mm-mm.
And a client called me and said that one of their clients got audited, and the IRS said, no, you need to depreciate the computer.
Correct.
So I
It
guess
is equipment.
it is
if
a
they-
depreciation, not added as an expense on office.
Correct. The office expense would be if they were leasing that laptop. If you bought it, it's a business. It becomes, at that point, it becomes property. You own it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Even if you're making payments on it, you own it, not someone else doesn't own it, and you're not paying them to use it, right? You're paying to purchase it.
Mhm.
So that gives you ownership. So that is correct. What what they were told is correct. It is
And,
not an office expense, it is a property.
the property. So if they're doing a tax return, and I think I'm kind of leaning more towards the training, right? But I figured we cover what we here. If they doing a tax return for a small business that have multiple computers, then they need to just, if they have 3 computers, they got to do this process 3 times.
Correct, because the cost basis may not be the same, the depreciation may not be the same, and they may want to split it, is the other side. Especially with the full depreciation, special depreciation that's going on.
Mhm.
Sometimes you want to do that, sometimes you don't. You don't have to take it, right? So that's why each individual asset is different, right? If you own, just because you own 4 homes, doesn't mean you lump them all together, right? They're 4 individual properties.
Right.
Same
So-
thing.
So the difference between the software and the desktop is because I noticed on the desktop, when we're gonna depreciate it, it automatically give us a list if it's a house or computer, blah, blah, blah. On this one, we just need to write it ourselves.
No, there's a list.
Okay, where's,
If you click the help me button, that's where you'll get the asset table.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So you'll be able to, at that point, be able to select what it is and give you the asset class, and then it'll give you the acres makers, the convention, the method, whatever it is that you need. And
Okay.
so like in this case, this technically, I believe laptops
buses,
They- probably, it just kind of depends. But I mean, we actually have more assets here broken into different groups,
mhm.
right? Than what's in that desktop software. Generally, this is gonna, well-
We have an option that we don't have to go through this whole list. If we already know it's a laptop, we could just type it in the description and keep moving.
no,
No?
no,
Okay.
you still have to even in the desktop software, you have to choose.
Right, they do, but this
Yeah.
one, we need to choose as well.
Well, and this is it, right? And that's why we put these extra things in here so that you have these things. Where did my close button go? If you click on it, it will tell you
Oh, right here.
what those things are. Where did it go?
At the top, right there. Keep going. No, no, no. Now look, I'm over here trying to see. It's right at the top where it says information system to the left. Go to the left. I mean to the right. There it is.
Okay, yeah, I got to get them to change that because I couldn't see it.
Okay.
So information systems are going to be your computers, right? So, and that's where I'm saying. So, like here, it'll tell you anything that's not a structure, right? As part of the building, office furniture does not include communication equipment. Communication equipment goes in here. Generally, information printers, things like that, card readers, right? So that's where I said we have a little more detail in these things. So click apply and close, and you'll see it fills out. everything that you need at that point. If it's a vehicle, then you change that. The second part is down in here. If you want to claim that special allowance, you can split it. I'm not going to for the sake of this, just so that I can save this and we can get what we're seeing. Saying
Yeah.
that's what the depreciation amount is. If I take the special and I take 100%, which they can do or they could do,
Mhm.
see, it's going to go at 0 here in the depreciation, but when I save, it should update on that Schedule C. We go back to the Schedule C.
Mhm.
See, it's giving me the full amount, and that I did this for a reason, because that's one of the calls that we get. The
Mhm.
special depreciation, it's worded incorrectly because it's not depreciation.
Mhm.
You're not depreciating that item, you're taking the full expense. It's actually not a depreciation, it's a special allowance. So we did get the wording changed. I
Okay,
just
so
need
to check if we want to get the full depreciation for that
R-
year.
right. They could do 0, they could do 50%, or they could do half. See, that'll give me the depreciation. But if I go down here, right,
I'm so glad you're covering that because I did get a lot of questions on that.
and you'll see it's giving me half and it's depreciating the other half. So that's why I have a depreciation. So I have a special allowance and depreciation, which you can do, right? Generally, I
Mhm.
would say for most people on this 4562, for the current year stuff, like the
Mhm.
stuff you bought in the current year that you can take the 100%, most of you are going to want to take the 100%. The key thing to remember in this is if you take 100%, they do not get to depreciate that item any further
Right.
because
And
you're
give me
taking all of it at one time, right?
Yes,
So,
and before you move forward, I'm so glad you said the part if you bought it in the current year, because I think a lot of people get confused. So if you get a client that, let's say, have purchased their laptop or their home or whatever in 2021, but you're doing the taxes for 2022, you are not able to get the full depreciation because they bought it the year, 2 years prior. They didn't buy it on the year that you're doing the tax return for, correct?
correct. And that's the key piece,
Mhm.
right? And that's why this date matters.
Mhm. Right, right. Because I
Now,
think
the
I
date placed in service for the vehicle isn't as important, right? Unless
Mhm.
they're taking actual expenses and depreciating that vehicle. Depreciation only goes so long, right? For a laptop computer, this classification tells you how long that item can be depreciated for
5 years.
5 years, right? So
Unless
if I bought this computer, for example, if I bought this back in 2010, can I depreciate it anymore?
Mhm.
No,
Mhm.
right? That 5 years is well past. But
Right.
if I have been putting 1/1 of the current year, how many years can I depreciate that? Well,
Okay.
forever, because it looks like I'm buying it every single year.
Mhm.
I didn't buy it 10 years ago, even though I bought it 10 years ago. And
Right.
that's that important piece, especially with depreciation, that will catch your clients in trouble if you're
Mhm.
not putting the correct date placed in service. And I know there were a lot of preparers that I've come across over the years who think that that date placed in service means what day did I start using it this year? No, it's what date did they start using it for business, period. Right?
And
If they started using it in 1986, that's
Mhm.
the date that belongs there, not 2021.
I also
And
see how they're putting the day the person purchased the vehicle, not necessarily the day that they started doing Uber, for example, right? Which is
bingo.
would be the day they put it in service. Mhm.
Right, because that's when they can start depreciating. They
Right.
don't ask you how old the vehicle is. They don't care. Right? If I bought that vehicle in let's say my wife's truck, we bought it in 2020. If
Okay.
5 years from now I take over that truck and start using it for a construction business, the depreciation starts 5 years from now. Right?
Right.
And that's the key piece to it. And the cost basis doesn't change. So, like I said, I'm not going to take it here
Mhm.
because I I I just want to take the depreciation. I don't want to take the bonus stuff. And the reason for that, and this is where you guys have to pay attention
Mhm.
and understand, right?
You
So
guys,
let's say I'm going to change this 1099 NEC for the sake of doing this, right? Let's say I got 1800 here, right?
uh-huh.
Just a little bit, not very much. And now let's go look at the Schedule C. Well, now I'm taking a $90 loss.
Mm,
Is there any reason for me to increase the amount of depreciation this year?
no.
No. Everything below 0 doesn't affect anything else.
Mhm,
So I would do better for my client to carry that to the next year so
mhm,
that they can get depreciation on that laptop next year, where
mhm,
maybe they make more money and that has a bigger impact. Because I have seen some the last 2 years when this special allowance that have come out, where you got people with $28,000 losses and they've got depreciation for, they're taking the full special allowance on the depreciation and the depreciation's like $22,000.
yeah,
And I'm
we're
like, you could carry that to next year by
mhm,
not taking the special allowance.
mhm,
You can carry the depreciation to future years. Now they can spread that out over the next 5 years because they clearly don't need it all in this year. It was a way to help businesses in 2020 and 2021. And I think 2019 is actually when it started, but
mhm.
neither here nor there. Right.
Kevin, the way that I determine the best way for the client is if a client is purchasing a home, then
Hmm.
in that case, then you want to do as much depreciation as possible so you stay away from expenses, right? Because depreciation don't hurt them as much as expenses.
Hmm.
So then at that point, yes, it makes sense to do a full depreciation for that
Right.
year.
Yeah.
That is better to carry it over.
Yeah, and it's just I think the point of me bringing it up more was about just understanding that you have options with that depreciation.
Yeah.
It's not an all or nothing. You don't have to take all of the depreciation this year. You can take
Mhm.
it like normal depreciation.
Right.
So we got our Schedule C, we did our depreciation, we did our mileage.
He-
Um,
Well, when you move forward, when I tell you this is the question I get asked the most with depreciation, you guys, if you hear me asking question, I had taken the same training like 4 times, so I'm purposely asking these questions, not because I really don't know, but because I want him to cover as much as possible so everyone understands. So please jump in at any time. Now is the time. If you didn't understand anything he went over. So anybody, can you unmute your computer and ask questions if you have any? Okay, I guess we got really smart people, Kevin. Let's move on.
I'm the greatest training ever.
Yeah, exactly. I agreed.
Don't you worry, Kevin. We'll be calling you later anyway.
That's what we don't want.
Yeah,
So,
that's
Yeah.
let me I'm gonna throw this out there because all of you guys are changing softwares.
yes,
Yeah.
Please get in this software and start doing returns now.
yes.
And I say that because what you don't want to do is have to call us with your client sitting in front of you.
Yes.
That's never, it's not a great look, which is why I tell you guys, if you have a client in front of you, you should use live chat. They might hear the dings of the messages going back and forth, but they don't know who you're talking to.
Mhm.
So you get to sort of maintain some level of expertise directly in front of them. Now, once they leave, you want to pick up the phone and call and get a further explanation. Feel free, but I would say if you have somebody in front of you, try to utilize live chat as much as you can. Someone
Yeah.
asked the question: Can you submit returns if you have clients this month? Yes. If you have new clients this month, you can submit returns. There's
Mm.
nothing preventing you from doing that. You can't
Mm.
do bank products, but they should because you're already enrolled under the desktop software on that EFIN. And they're not obviously taking bank enrollments for the prior year, which is where they're at. All the banks have rolled to next year. So if that client needs a bank product, you'll have to do it in the desktop software. But if they're doing just a straight e-file, you can do that. The IRS is likely going to shut down November 26th, just so everybody knows that. I know TPG sent out something a few days ago, said that they were going to take bank products to the 30th. I don't think they will because I don't think the IRS is still going to be open by the 30th. So keep that in mind. I'm expecting them. I would say it this way: expect to be done with the tax year 2021 whenever you close your office for Thanksgiving, because likely when you come back, the system will be offline.
Right.
Right, the IRS system will be offline. They won't be taking any new returns after that.
You know
All
what,
right.
Kevin, I like that Chanel asked that question as far as she could submit return, because it gave me an idea. So I know I've been telling everyone, just take some of the return you already done on your desktop and practice with those on the online software. Why? Because you're gonna see if you got the same answer, the same reason for that client, then you know you're doing something right. But what I like about Chanel's question is that, you know what, if you get a new client now, instead of doing it on the desktop, go ahead and do it in the software. So also give you more practice and just submit it from there. So that way, when you do next year tax return for that same client, their information is already on the new software. Just wanted.
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I will tell you guys this. I had 25 clients last year that were working directly with me that changed from that desktop software to this online software. And the ones who got in early, the ones who did new returns in the new software, the ones that actually did returns are the ones that did not struggle at all when the tax season came. The ones who didn't were the ones that were calling me every other day. The ones who didn't come to training are the ones that were calling me every other day. So we want this transition to be as easy as possible for you, right? And so we're going to do everything that we can on this side to make it as easy as possible, but you have to commit. I know changing softwares for a lot of people is scary. It is. But understand that at the end of the day, every tax software does exactly the same thing. They all file tax returns. It's just learning the process. And the easiest way to learn the process is to do the process. That's it. If you get in and you do it, I don't think you will struggle at all.
Yeah.
But if you are struggling in November, that's much better than struggling in January, right? Because in November, you like Anna said, if you are doing a comparative return from a return that you did in desktop this year and you're doing it in the online software, if you see something that doesn't match up, call support and we will explain what happened. We can figure it out. Because I can look at both returns, or Chris can look at both returns, right? We can look at both of them and look and go, okay, line by line, where did something get off? And it may just be as simple as this. It could be as simple as you didn't click the HOH qualifier. That'll change the whole return, right? Or you accidentally unclicked this, right? It could be very simple things, but because the process is a little bit different, you may have missed it. And I'll give you a prime example, right? We're in this return right now, right? I've entered all the dependent data. I've got my Schedule C. I did my depreciation. I got my child care expenses in. I think I'm done. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and hit verify and let's see what we got. Whoa. Okay. So we got quite a bit of stuff, right? Someone asked, is there a place where you can do a practice return? You can just do it in the software. It's totally okay for you to just do practice returns, especially in your 2021. When you get into 2022, you can still do some practice returns in there as well. Like it's totally okay. There's no harm in you doing practice returns.
There's not two spaces like we have it on the desktop, Kevin?
No, there is not. No.
Okay.
So here's our verify screen, right? So we've got some things. This is generally how I work. I work from the bottom up. I want to get rid of the non-critical errors, and then we can get into the critical things, right? So this is QBI. So what they're saying is we've entered business income, but we have not completed the QBI deduction. So we're going to click where it says click here to fix. And it will take us over to the QBI. Let me show you. The QBI is one of the easiest things to do in the software. So we get to this screen. We're going to click add new. We're going to click pick from list. We're going to select our Schedule C. We're going to hit use. We're going to hit save. That's it. We're done. There's nothing left to do. So now we hit verify again. So now we've got 8812, right? Says you're eligible for child tax credit. You may need to enter the advanced child tax credit payments. The nightmare that was this year was those advanced child tax credit payments. So we'll click here to fix. And in this case, we're just going to say we didn't get anything. So if I don't have anything to change on here, I'm just going to hit save on this form. And when I hit verify, you'll see that that's gone. Same thing here where this is about the 2019 earned income. That goes away. I don't need to, I'm not doing it, so I'm just gonna hit save.
No, almost working.
And we'll go back. We'll go back to the verify. Here's the recovery rebate credit. What's interesting is those last 3 things that I went over, we are not going to deal with in 2022 anyway. So I'm just going to kind of go really quickly through this. There's no more EIP. There was no advanced child tax credit payments, and you can't use your 2019 income to calculate EIC in 2022. So you're fine, right? Now we're going to hit verify again. So now we got the 8867 and then the PIN. So we're going to go do the 8867. We're going to click here to fix. We're going to click add new. You'll see it already checks. And this is the same 8867 that you guys have been filling out for a while. There are a couple of differences. And again, these things are to help you. Okay. On question 5, this is where it talks about the record retention, right? What documents did you keep? What worksheets? What did you use? How did you determine that they are eligible for these credits? And we give you some example on this real quick. I know you have a question about the 4562. Let me finish the 8867 and we'll come right back to that. I promise.
I have a question.
Okay.
Are those gonna be pre-selected like in the other software, or do we have to manually select them all and like kind of like read through them, you know?
Okay. I have a follow-up question. What software are those pre-selected? Because that's an
Not
absolute violation.
Okay, let me correct my, let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
Not pre-selected, but what kind of work can I use?
Suggestion, Kevin. You know what? I think we in the other training we did with somebody else. Basically, on the desktop, when you go to verify, it takes you to what the answer should be in order for that clients to qualify. So
Correct.
Does this one does that, or we had to actually read? And yes, we had to actually read on this one to answer your question.
Yeah, here's the truth. The IRS has a real issue with it doing that because the software is not supposed to give you the answer to these questions. You're supposed to read these questions and answer these questions based on the information that was provided to you. The IRS has a real issue with that. And that's why I was like, wait, somebody's pre-filling these? No, like that's a terrible idea. I know what you're saying.
Yes, like I said, I refreshed my question because they're not pre-selected. It kind of takes you to, because it's a pretty common sense question for the client to qualify, right?
Right.
So that's all I was asking, and like, what's her name? Janet. I always get those two confused. Janet and
Anna is Anna.
Anna, yes. Anna, corrected me, and said that no, they're not pre-selected, but so this one does not have that option. We will have to read through each one of the questions.
Yes, until you learn what the pattern is. That's the best way I can say. The questions are exactly the same.
Off the record, can we get the pattern, Kevin?
It's off the record. It's on the screen. Like legitimately, I mean, it's
take a picture. Just kidding.
So when you come down here,
spoiled, Kevin. We just got a lot of us got spoiled with the with the other one on that case, so off the record, like, okay, we already know it, letting us know what the answer needs to be.
Yeah. So I want to show you this. So we're going to come down here. I'm going to answer all these questions. I'm not going to do anything in the bottom yet. When I hit save, we're getting a verify error here. And this is why. Attach the explanation. This is going to save you in an IRS audit. I promise you. This is where, so that's where I was at. It was line 5, where it talks about record retention. We give you an example of the documents that you need to verify that they qualify for these credits, right? These are some examples of documents that you can use, right? So,
and I just want to do like a rule of thumb. Normally when these happen, I ask them for the information so I could just attach it to the return to prevent any calls or any identity, they need to check their identity. I do ask for it so that I can attach it to the returns to prevent the IRS letters.
And that's exactly what you're supposed to do. I mean, that's 100% correct in that process. What we do is we add this line 5 description. This was at the IRS's request so that you can list what those documents are. What documents that I have. This will give you a checklist, right? If you're printing returns or if you're going to DM docs, right? The IRS comes in and they says, hey, we want to see the 8867. And you're like, okay. And they go, we want to see the records. If I hit this view explanation, I can see, okay, I got school records, I got a property statement, I got a healthcare provider statement. All of those should either be in my DM docs up here or I should have them physically in the file so that you know what documents you have and what you're looking for. It saves you a ton of time. I've got somebody going through an audit right now on this, and she's like, this is saving me so much time because I know if I'm missing something or not. Right? I have a list of the documents that are supposed to be there. So she's able to then hold her preparers accountable. Like, hey, you said you had these 3 docs and I only have 1 of them. Where are the other 2? What happened? So the second
so glad-
piece.
Sorry about that. I'm so glad you said that, no joke aside, I like joking, but I'm so glad Kevin said that because being on this side, I get to see so many people get audited. As far as, all my clients like you guys, and IRS is auditing a lot of people lately.
Mhm.
And they're putting the blame more on us, a tax preparer, than the client. And sometimes it's like it's not even fair. So when I tell you, it's so important to have those documents and so important to have the receipts, because they don't want to hear the client told me this information. They want us to actually have receipts. So just wanted to make sure I put that out there.
Yeah, I have said this before for some of you who have had me trained before.
Mhm.
If your taxpayer cannot prove it to you, you cannot prove it to the IRS.
Exactly.
That's simple, right? If they're saying, well, I had these expenses. Okay, great. Do you have receipts? You got a credit card statement, you got something that I can use to prove this to the IRS. And if you
Mhm.
phrase it in that way, you'll be shocked at how many people are like, oh yeah, don't worry about it then.
Mhm.
So
It's big on daycare with that as well. People, oh, they're at a home daycare and nobody has like a social or EIN.
yeah, then I can't put it on there then. That's
Exactly.
yeah, I mean that's how that works. So this is this last section, and this is a piece that is probably my single favorite tax preparation feature in this software. There's a bunch of features in the software that I love, but this one saves you guys the most. You can use this bottom section to enter all of the questions that you asked and their responses. For example, this is a head of household person, right? Single dad is how I'm phrasing it, right? Why is the mother claiming the dependent? Right? So that's the question I asked. So here's the answer that it gave me. The mother is dead. That's a pretty good answer, right? Custody agreements, whatever, right? So whatever you're asking, you can answer those questions and enter those answers. And then we give you this section where you get the date that it was received and who you received it from. So if the spouse answered the questions, if both of them answered the questions, or if you got it from the taxpayer, you can enter that here. So I'm going to say taxpayer, but this is the most important piece. You can generate this worksheet for them to sign. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to check this box. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go up to this view print. And down here, there is a 8867 preparer note. We're going to open that up. And that is a list of the questions I asked. And I can print this for them to sign because at the bottom here, it says, by signing below, you verify the above information was provided by you and is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. They cannot go to the IRS now and say, they never asked me that, or I didn't tell them that. This feature right here, that client that was going through the audit, the EIC audit, she had this for every one of those taxpayers. She came out clean in the audit because of this paper. Because everything she wrote in here, the documents that she collected, all of those things. So, someone asked if you can email or checks directly from the system. Yes, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. So,
Kevin, maybe I missed it because I know I have to step out sometimes. Did you cover how on the Schedule C, they also able to make notes for the expenses they put on there?
I didn't specifically, but I can.
Okay, so just so you know, guys, which is pretty cool, just like this one. So you know how, let's say, for example, when someone tells you they have office expenses, many times that amount include multiple items, right? So when the clients get audited, that's when it becomes so hard because you know that they tell you $2,000 and you don't know for what you got to come up with the receipts. So by putting notes, now, when they get audited, you could tell them, I noticed that for office expenses, you said $2,000. What this entail is office desk and so on and so forth. So you see how now it's going to make it easy for them to come up with the receipts to provide to the IRS.
Right. You can put in paper supplies, for example, and say it's $250, and we can put in printer supplies,
I really love this feature here.
you know, and it was $125, whatever. It's gonna keep a running total, right? And then when you come back into it, you see this field's highlighted in green. That tells you that there's a work pad. So when I click work pad, I can see if I need to delete them all, I can delete them all. If I, you know, and in addition to that, up here at the top in the toolbar, you have a work pad button. This work pad button will show you where you have work pads. So it's on the Schedule C in the office expense. We have a work pad in the amount of 250. So now I know on that Schedule C that field should be green. Same thing in the override. If you click this override, it'll show you where you have any overridden fields.
Right.
This from a support standpoint is my favorite feature, because sometimes people will override a field and then I'm searching through, you know what I mean? I'm searching through the return trying to figure out what field they overrode. I don't have to do that in here. I can just open this up and go to override and it'll tell me what fields are overridden. I will offer this advice to everyone, and this is just general sort of advice in regards to the software, which is trust the software but verify, right? If you're not totally sure, it's okay to double check.
Right.
But if you're getting a calculated amount, the calculations are correct.
Right.
99, 9,999 times out of 10,000, it's correct. Avoid doing this. Avoid overwriting fields. If you're having to overwrite a field, you should be talking to someone in support already. That's generally what the general rule that I kind of put in place is. If you feel like you need to overwrite a field, then support needs to be contacted because something's wrong with the software at that point. Something is wrong with the calculations if you feel that way, or you need a better explanation as to why it is calculating this way, right? It's one of those two.
How do
So-
you differentiate the difference on the ones that are automatic boxes and the ones that you could put in information?
If it's really not hard, because if you have an override feature here, it's a calculated field.
Okay.
Right? So if we come down, for example, the charitable contributions field here, I can type in that 300. There's no override field, right?
Oh.
Non-refundable credits, that's coming from the 8812. That'll calculate, but technically you could. No, that won't. That's a hard coded. But yeah, I mean, there's some things.
You
Right.
see on the desktop, if it's gray, we know we're not supposed to type on there. Is it the same on this one?
Pretty much. Look, here's the truth.
Uh-huh.
When you're on the 1040, there's really only one field you're ever going to type into. That's 12B. And that actually isn't even going to apply next year, because that above line contribution, this line here, line 12B, that's gone.
Okay.
In this software, everything is coming from somewhere else,
Okay.
right? You're generally not entering anything here. In the Schedule C, right?
Yeah.
Schedule C doesn't calculate anything. Everything pushes to the 1040, and that's the idea.
Okay.
And I'll show you, like we're going to hit this verify again. So we have nothing in the return, but like see the 8812. Yeah, I'm going to exit without saving. You can see, right, those fields. These are fields you can type in, and that's where I always look. If you have it, right, you'll know. If you click in a field and you can't type, It's a calculated field, right? If it has an override button, it's definitely calculated. Now there are some fields, like on the 1040, I'll show you. like the standard deduction or these lines,
Mhm.
you can't, they're not even fields,
Right.
right? The standard deduction is not a field. We're not giving you the ability to ever overwrite those fields,
Okay.
which thank God, because I saw a tax return in the desktop where somebody overrode the standard deduction.
Oh my goodness.
And then they paper filed the return because they wouldn't, they're like, well, I won't e-file it. I go, well, yeah, because you can't have a $37,000 standard deduction, my man.
Yeah.
Like you can't overwrite that field. The fact that it let them, I was shocked. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that could be done. Like, man, is that something we can do? Because my tax bill will go way down if I could change my own
Right.
standard deduction. So now we're going to hit verify, right? We've entered everything we need. The last thing is the taxpayer PIN. This is super easy. This is the 8879, guys. This is the entirety of it. This stuff at the top is going to be pre-filled for you. As long as you've got it entered in your office setup. If for whatever reason you don't have a PIN, don't worry about it. You can type it in, or we can set it as a default for you for the following returns. You're always going to want to use the e-file practitioner PIN method. You do not want to do the self-select method. Self-select method, you have to get it. You have to get their AGI and all that other stuff from the prior year. Don't do that. Just leave it on the practitioner PIN method, and this is what happens. Auto-generate, entered by ERO, save. That's it. If you have to paper file a return, you're going to come here, check that box, and then hit save. It's going to tell you need the 8948, right? So we saved this. So now we can hit complete. Well, let's hit verify. We have no errors, right? So now you want to hit complete, and this is the key. And this is where we're going to run into it because I'm waiting for somebody to ask, and I'm glad that you guys haven't yet. Well, where do we do the bank application? So the way this software works, and I couldn't be happier about it, is in the desktop software, they put everything in the same place. Here we go, complete the return, then get paid. Those are two different things that are not necessarily directly connected to each other. We want you to finish the return and then you will get paid, right? So we're going to show you complete. So this is what, these are the important things. So when you hit complete, you want to make sure that you want to mark the return complete, which means I am done. I've done everything I need to do inside this tax return. You want to mark the return reviewed if you want to electronically file. So generally, unless depending on your process in your office, but I'm just operating on a single person office is the way I train on. You want to mark the return complete, you want to mark the return reviewed, and then you want to save and redirect to manage returns. Okay, save and redirect manage returns, and it will tell you e-file option is not available due to payments not completed for this return, right? Which means you cannot transmit this return or e-file this return because you haven't gotten paid. And I'm going to show you how to get paid because that's the most important thing in this industry is getting paid, right? So you go down into this client payment section, you hit start payment. You're going to add new invoice. In this case, I have it set to manual. So I'm going to enter my fee. I'm going to hit continue, and then you're going to see the invoice, right? So how do I do a bank product versus non-bank product? It's as simple as a click. Payment mode. Non-banking means it's not going through the bank, right? Going through the IRS, they need to pay you up front. Banking goes through the bank. So if I do banking and I hit continue, then it will take me through a bank product. Again, I can't show you the bank product, but it's the same bank application you guys have been using for years. And when we get a little later in the year, I'll be able to, once we roll live, then we'll be able to get you guys a walkthrough specifically on the bank application piece, right? But let's just leave it as non-banking for now, because even if I hit banking, because I'm not enrolled with the bank and I hit continue, it's going to take me to non-banking anyway, because I'm not enrolled with the bank, right? So now you want to say, yes, they paid me. They paid me check, they paid me money order, they paid me credit card. It gives you some options to be able to track sort of how that payment is. I'm just going to say cash. I always leave the invoice marked incomplete. So it says, do you want to mark this invoice as completed? I always say no, because people change their mind. No, I want to do a bank product. Yes, I don't. Yes, I want to do a bank product. So they change their mind. So I don't ever do that. Same thing with this e-file return now. I always say no, because this is my process. My process is do the return, get paid, get signatures, send copies, right? Give the customer their copy, file the return. That's the order in which I operate. So we're going to do save and continue. We're going to go back to manage returns, and you'll see now that I have a transmit now button. Well, I'm not transmitting this return, right? I got paid. So I'm not transmitting the return, but I need signatures before I can transmit that return, right? And they need to get a copy. So we're going to go over here to signature. So we got a couple of options for signatures. We have the signature option. Well, let me rephrase it. Before we got to the client payment, and maybe even before we got to the return, we should have done the DM docs. And this is where you'll actually upload and store or scan documents. If I hit scan document, it's going to pick up my webcam, probably. It may not. Yeah, there it goes. So you can see my hand. Yay. So you can capture using basically any webcam. There is a supported document scanner. It's it's basically a webcam that points down so that you can get high quality pictures. But you can use any webcam, or you can upload your own documents, and you can do upload document, put in a description. You set the type, identification, and then you just select the path, that you want to use. And I'll show you. So we're going to add. So we can upload this document. It says it's successful, and you see there's Bruno's driver's license, right? So these things are sort of that way, right? So you can upload those documents at any point. You can delete these. You have a lot of flexibility in here, and I encourage you to use it. So we've got all his docs. Let's assume that we have all of the docs that we need. Now we got to get the signatures. So we have, again, a couple of options on the signatures. I always do select all here. This will carry that signature, federal form, state, bank product, EIC. So you got, again, you have a couple options. You can do it here, right? I'm using my mouse. You can use the electronic signature pad. So those options are there, very easy. Or you can go to My Tax Office. My Tax Office will give you a couple of options. They can do client portal, they can do remote signature. I want to show you a remote signature only first. That's probably the one I'm going to show you, because the process on the phone is no different than email for remote signature, and then and the client portal is pretty similar. It's really not much different in the process, but hang on. I just want to make sure I get my email up real quick. So remote signature. And at this point, I'm going to change this email address. And so you can decide here where it needs to go. So we're out of the return, right? So if I want to change any of this stuff, I can. I'm not even going to put in a mobile number because I don't want to send it that way. I want to send it email. The link is valid for 24 hours. If they do not use the link within 24 hours, then you'll have to send them a new link, right? So we're going to click send link. And it's going to send. And I want to show you guys one of the reasons I love our remote signature. Now, there are a couple of differences. One, there's a singular remote signature. We cannot send this to multiple, like we can't split it. There's one message that goes, right? And they sign for both people. So if you have taxpayer and spouse, they got to sign together. It is in our pipeline. I know the engineers are working on it, but we had quite a heavy load of tax code changes this year. So it got tabled. I don't think it'll get done this year, but it's looking more likely to be done for next year. So I'm going to show you what this email looks like. So this is what the email they get. Say, hey, you're just going to click here to access it. They get the text message. It's going to be very similar. They're going to get a link. They click the link, and it's going to take them to this page. Right. And this is the authentication. Now, my problem is I don't remember what I put. Okay, I know the social 84. Okay. There it is. So 555155888, I think is what I did. So 11. And then they validate user. And so in here, now it's going to give you sort of the overview. What it's doing now is it's generating the return, right? So they can look at all of the individual pages. and they can say, I have reviewed my return. Then they click done. Now it's going to ask them, do you want to sign your tax return, electronically sign your tax return documents? Say yes. They hit OK. You hit start, save signature, and then they're going to click marked completed. Now you saw I just did that, right? That's how fast it comes back. There's no waiting, there's no delay. If you come in here and you don't have the signature, it's because they did not sign. Because the way the remote signature works in this software is they are essentially logging in to this screen. That's what this login, that's what this screen does. It's essentially they're logging into the exact same server that you are using and accessing this signature box, essentially. So there is no delays. I can tell you this, remote signature has been in place in this software for 2 years. I have never, ever gotten a call where someone's saying my client said they signed and I don't have it. Has not happened. So when they're done, they just click close or they close the window. It'll log them out. When we go, again, we look, here's the signature. We're going to do select all and we're going to do save because I didn't select it all. But when we go to view print, right? So the signature is here, it is saved. We go view print. We have the full tax return. So we're going to do prepare copy, right? And I'm going to click export to document manager. But first, before I do that, I want to print selected. And I want you guys to see what this does. It opens in a PDF. So if you need to save the PDF to your computer, you just download and you save it. If you want to print it from here, you print. So it opens in a PDF and we get the full return. And let me show you what's at the bottom of page 2. All the signatures are here. Their signature, prepare signature, P10, the whole thing. It's all done. So everything that has a signature or that has a signature field now has a signature on it. But that includes coming down into, I don't have a bank app on this one, but where is that page? Here. That 8867, their signature is there. Here's that 8867 line 5. That gives me that list of documents that I used, right? All of those things are now there. Now, what you can do, you can print your copy. You can decide not to print your copy. That's fine. Prepare copy. We're going to do export to document manager. So now the full signed copy of the return is available in DM Docs. And there it is in its entirety. And I can click download and download it. I can click print. I can merge all of the documents together into a singular PDF if I want to do that. Right? So there's the ID that I uploaded, and then there's the tax return. So I can put it all in one place if I want to do it that way. So it's entirely up to you guys the way you want to handle this. Hang on, I need to close this back window. But now we have the signature, right? Documents are signed, so on. Documents are signed, so I'm ready to move forward. So at that point now, I can hit transmit now. Or I can send them their copy. My advice to everybody has been for the last 2 years, I think, has been position it so that they will take the return via email. So tell them when you go to print the return, say, okay, I'm going to email you a copy of your return. If the client goes, no, can I get it printed? Then print it. Most of them I have found will go, okay, and leave. They don't want to carry around that big packet of paper any more than you want to print it and give it to them. So most of them will go, okay. If they don't, that's fine. Print it and move on. I'm going to show you how to email it. Printing it is very easy. We just went through that. So we click view print. We want to send the customer copy, and I want to throw a watermark on that because I don't want them filing this thing. I'm shocked at the number of people that do this. So we're going to click email customer copy. By default, it is encrypted. It is going to pick up the email address that is on the return, but you can send it anywhere you want to send it. So I'm going to send it to my Gmail address again, which I closed the window. I shouldn't have. There it goes. So I'm going to send it there. Like I said, by default, it is encrypted. And so when that email comes in just a second, I'll show you. And you did notice that there is no email configuration, right? We didn't do any email configuration, and we never will. The reason for that is everything is sent through our servers. We're not using Google. We're not using a third party. It's sent through our servers. So you'll see it comes from IND Solution. It says your copy of the tax return is here, right? And it gives them the full thing. It's the full letter. And it tells them how the password is generated. The password is the first 4 letters of their first name, their full date of birth, and the last 4 of their social. And it is all lowercase. That's the key. And we give examples, right? If it's John Doe and the date of birth is 4/9/1983 and the social is 400/00/1001, then the password will be John 04/09/1983 1001. So, and it's attached and it says it's encrypted. So we're going to open this and I'm going to show you what the password is. TEST 01/01/1984 5888. And there's their copy of their return, completely encrypted and watermarked. It says view only, do not file. It's enough of a watermark for them not to file. And you actually can modify the watermark if you want, if you really need to. So that's how it comes through. And here's the cool thing, because the password is generated in that way every time, this is one of the things that you can do when you email the return. If they've opted in for text messaging, you can go to text and say, the password for your, oh God, I can't type, for your tax return is test 01/01/1984. I think I have one too many zeros. 588. You can actually send them their password via text message because the IRS says the password and the password cannot be in the email. You cannot send them both in the same method. So I don't know if you guys heard that, but I actually got it. And here's the text message. And if they reply to that text message, like I just did, right? I'm going to show you. We're going to leave this client's return all the way. Right? We went back to the dashboard. At the very top, you'll see view text message, and there's a parentheses that tells you that you got a text message back. So then you can hit view text message, and you'll see that I said thank you back. And if I want to reply, or if I want to look at it further, then I just have to go in to that client's return and see, because it tells me who the client is and what number it was sent to. It tells me that I have unread messages. So let's go back into that client real quick. This one. All right. So now we've done everything. We're going to go ahead and transmit the return. You just hit transmit now, select it, hit transmit now, and that's it. It's done. It's gone. Okay. When we go, yeah, I want to. Come on. Let me get back to. So now we have completely finished this return, right? It's 2 months later, and the client calls and says, hey, I need a copy of my return. And you go, I provided you a copy of your return. Well, I need another one. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you a link so that you can create an account in the client portal so you can have access to a copy of your tax return and your documents anytime you want it. So to do that, you click My Tax Office, and there'll be a link here once you've sent the return. And let me see if it's on, it may be on the other, I think it's on here. You can click this button that says Upgrade to Full Access. When you do Upgrade to Full Access, they will get an email to set up their account. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Send link. Previously this was 30 minutes. It is no longer, it is 24 hours on this as well. Let me grab that email real quick. Come on. May not even come to this email because this is. I feel like I already set this up. Is this return even done? Yeah, it's done. Okay. Let me see if it sent it somewhere else. Give me my email. That's all right. It will take them over here to mytaxoffice.com. And a second here. And maybe we may have already rolled to 2022 on this portal, but I'm not sure. We did. Yeah, we already rolled to the next year. Let me see if I can log in, if I can remember. Maybe? No, let's see. I think this will work. I have too many saved accounts over here. And two. Oh, there we go. So basically we'll take them into here. Wait a second. And this will, up here where it has this company's name, it actually will change to your logo. Next year, you'll have the ability to upload your own logo into this. And so that will be a lot cooler. It'll be a lot nicer. That's one of the things I know that they have been working on this year, getting that actually added. 1 second, let me grab this. I need to grab the code, so I apologize. Authentication code is so that's what the client portal will look like, and it will carry from year to year. So you see, I have a 2020 and I have a 2021. They can view, and this is generating the return here. They can view copies of their tax return. Right here, they can select, say they've reviewed it. They can print document manager. If they have documents they want to upload, they can upload those. They can get anything that you store in the document manager. They can sign electronically. They can send messages. So it's a full thing that they have in that client portal. Secondarily, for those of you that do corporate returns, if you see, I can just click on it and I can download and save the 1040. I can save the Schedule C, whatever I want to do there. For corporate returns, I don't know if that's active yet. I haven't looked. But I believe that we were working on getting the client portal in for corps. Client portal for corps, remote signature for corps. I know those were two things in the pipeline. I believe, I am reasonably certain that the client portal will be there for the corporate, for the business returns this year. I'm almost positive it will be. Someone had a question. Go right ahead.
Okay. So when we're like, some of us were using Atom last year. So this upcoming year, and obviously we're switching to this software. is there something you guys may have that gives the instructions or that we can recreate ourselves to show our clients how they go into the portal and, do all of these things? Is it something that you guys have in place for that or no?
No, I mean, it's all pretty straightforward. I mean,
Okay.
when they get the email, it'll tell them to create an account. They're going to create an
Okay.
account, and then, once they log in, you saw,
Okay.
I mean, they see
Yeah.
everything's kind of right there on the left-hand side. Everything's sort of right in front of them.
Right.
So I wouldn't think so, but
Okay.
I would think if, if a situation arises where we need to do something like that, I'm sure between Anna and I, we could probably figure something out.
Okay. I just ask because sometimes it's real simple and some people still, but
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. I mean, we still run into that with remote signature after 6 years of it being active in the desktop software. Where taxpayer will still get it and go, I don't know what to do. So just enter what you see on the screen and you should be fine.
Correct.
You know what I mean? But yeah, sometimes that
Okay,
happens.
awesome.
So,
Thanks.
I mean, looking at Anna's little hit list, and I think I covered everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So I think the only question I had earlier about Form 4562, that is automatically when we're going into the return, that's automatically on the side, or is that something we have to go into ourselves?
It will not be, it won't be, it won't be in the file forms until you go to it. Right.
Okay.
You can either go directly to the 4562 and add new, and then, if you got multiple schedules, you can pick from there. I
Mhm.
generally don't. I generally work from the schedule out. Right. So if I need to add a 1099 NEC or a 1099K, I go to the Schedule C and I click 1099K and then I add that form. Right. Same
Okay.
thing with the 4562.
Mhm.
If I need to add depreciation, I just come down to the depreciation, click that 4562, and it takes me right to where I need to go.
Okay,
Uh,
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, we'll never add depreciation by default because you'd be
Mhm.
surprised at the number of Schedule Cs I see and Schedule E's I see with no depreciation at all.
Yeah, well, that's why.
It's becoming more and more prevalent
Mhm.
in that because the country as a whole has changed from product to service, and our stuff kind of lasts longer. You know what I mean? Like we buy a laptop, we take the full depreciation in 2020, and that's it. That's the other side is we're seeing with the special allowance, we're seeing a lot less depreciation carrying over. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I bought all this stuff in 2020. I have nothing to depreciate now in 2021 because I bought my computer, I bought my laptop, I bought my car, whatever, and I took the full depreciation then. It's like, well, now there's nothing left, you know. So we're going to start seeing some shifts, I think, in depreciation. I am very curious to find out whether or not Congress is going to extend the special allowance after this year because tax year 2022, I believe, is the last year for it. It was 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. I think it was just a 5-year thing. So I'll be curious to see if they extend it. My guess is no, but we'll see.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
I have another question for the not the technologically challenged customers, because we know how they are, but can we have clients from the beginning have them set that account so they can download, different documents, or that's something that you only do after?
That's a really good question. I love it. Yes, Kevin.
We can't send an email to an email address we don't have, right? They can't do the verification unless they have these 4 things, right? So there's no way to send it ahead of time for them to fill it out on their side because they have to do a verification process to be able to link their return in the software to their account, right? So we have to have at least this information, right? Their name, their social, and their date of birth because they can't pass any verification without it. Now, that being said, while they cannot do it through the client portal, they can do it through the My Tax Office mobile app. and it will sync, right? The My Tax Office mobile app, they can download it on their phone, they can start the return, they can upload their documents, very similar to the mobile app you guys have been using. And when you finish the return, they actually can go to mytaxoffice.com and log in using that same login and have access to the client portal. So the login system is all connected. The client portal is all connected. The client portal and the mobile app are connected to each other. So one of the things that you guys are going to kind of luck out on is for your existing clients, we're able to pull all of this personal information, right? The date of birth, the social. So you could, in theory, you could come in to here and open this client manager and click My Tax Office, and it would give you the option for client portal. So you could send it to your existing client ahead of time for this coming year. Next year, they won't need to set the account up again because this will carry from whatever year you create it, right? Whatever year they create the login, it will carry from that tax year forward. So if they create it for tax year 2022, the portal will still be there in 23, 24, 25, 26, however many years they continue to keep coming. I think we cap it at 7 years. It's either 5 or 7 years. After 5 years, we drop it, but we haven't had the client portal but for 2 years, so we haven't had that discussion in depth yet as far as how long we're going to keep, those documents in the client portal. There's a limit, and my guess is we're going to follow whatever the IRS guidelines are, which I think they're supposed to keep it for 7 years.
So Kevin, let me make sure I kind of repeat what you said, make sure we all have an understanding of that. So once support give us a call to transfer all of our data to this system, right? So now we have all of our client in this system. We could go ahead and get ahead of ourselves and email all of our client, letting them know, hey, go ahead and sign up to your new portal and start uploading all your new documents. So when the time comes to get your taxes done, we have everything. Is that about right?
Yeah, let me show you. So I'm just gonna do a new return, right? And I'm not even gonna fill out everything that's on the return. I'm just gonna do. Oh, that one already exists. Okay, so let's do 2, 2. So we do 1, 2, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right?
Mhm.
So we do this. We do test. All I have to do is I have to fill this information out. Now, because you're carrying this information forward, this is right because we're able to convert most of this information. You
Right.
won't have to do what I'm doing now, right? Because we're carrying it from the year before. I just don't have prior year returns in here to show
So
you.
this one will answer the question that they just had, which is, can I send this person, if it's a new client, we could do this part and send the link to the client to go ahead and get their portal set up now, and they could start uploading the information through the portal instead of emailing it to us. Okay, so I think that would answer.
Yeah, exactly. So once I get past the personal information sheet, I can stop. No, I might want to change their date of birth. I don't think they're going to be in here.
We'll see. Was part of the question she had.
Yeah, I think. Let me save that. So once I have this, right, to get to the client portal is easy. So once we have the conversion done, you guys will be able, in your clients list, all of your clients
Gonna show here,
can be here
right?
because it will be in the prior year. So you could send it to them for the prior year, or you could import from the import, or you could create them. So there's a couple of options. If you want to send it from the current year, or if you want to send it from the prior year, that's up to you guys. If you're doing it from the current year, right? And then we just import all the returns to the current year. And then you can go to My Tax Office and you can click Client Portal and give them the full access to the client portal, right? And so then at that point, you just send them the email. And I'm wondering if it'll, like I said, I'm not sure if it will send this to me because I think oh no, it did. Okay, good.
This will be good for a lot of the people that do virtual taxes, because now instead of having all this email, because clients normally email all their documents, they could start from the beginning to just train their clients to kind of work this way, where they could just upload their information directly to their portal, opposed to emailing it to us.
Right. So
Absolutely.
here,
And also, I think it gives them a sense of like they have the power or they have full access all the time, which they're still going to call, I'm sure. But I think it gives them more sense of I'm getting this done. And I think it's a cool thing that you can do for your clients, and they feel more involved in the whole process.
yeah, absolutely. So they'll get an email to say just like this: hey, they sent you a link to create your portal account, and it says stay connected, allows you to view, like tells them what it's for, right? They're going to click create account and tell me if you've seen this before. You know what I mean? Like, this is literally the exact same screen that you get when you do remote signature.
Mhm.
So we're going to log in, right? We'll do test and test. And social was 1, 2, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 1, 2, 2, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then the date of birth is 1/1/1990, right? They do validate user, and now they're going to create an account for themselves.
Mhm. And you guys, for those of you that don't know, this is actually how CPA works with their clients. So this will give you so much credibility to make you seem like a bigger firm, especially for your small business client that probably came from something working this way in the past. So this is pretty cool.
Oh, cool. All right. I didn't know that already existed.
Yeah, CPA people, if you work with a CPA company, this is how they work with the client. They have a portal where you upload your information and things like that for security purpose. That's how they are.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons that I pushed so hard in this off season to have them get that for the corpse,
Mhm. Yeah,
so
'cause
that
this
you
is
guys
like
so
more
that you guys could do that as well for your business return clients. So
This is
once
more
they
than
set up,
sorry about that.
no, it's fine. Once they set up the account, right, then they're going to go to it'll take them back to the login screen, and then they have to set up two-factor authentication. There's no way around this. They have to do this. This is an IRS requirement. I want to send it here. So it'll send them a code, right? It's the same two-step authentication. And the reality is, I know there's some people that are, I don't like doing this. Too bad. This is the way of the world. The entire world is going this way. Two-factor authentication, it is about protecting you. It's about protecting your information. If you don't want to protect your information, please feel free to go online, post the back of your credit card, and see what happens. Like, I mean, that's just kind of, this is the way the world works in terms of technology. So now you see, I have 2021 tax year up here. When 2022 comes, my login is still valid. It's still active. So I can come in and do this and upload my documents for that year, really at any point, right? I can come in here. I got this. I can go Bruno, I can go Docs. So let's say I got some birth certificates. So let's upload that. You know, and we can set the type, and I can add more. So I'm going to add a second. And let's go up one. Let's get Bruno's ID. I got the client data sheet. Right. So I can add all of these with no issue, right? Upload. They're all uploaded. And now these documents are saved for them. So if they ever need a copy of Bruno's ID, for example, I can go get it. I can save it. I can open it in a PDF in the print. Like, I can open the window, I can open the file that was actually saved. And then this is just as much as, save the document. Now, when we go back over here, though, to the return, right? When I go to DM Docs, there's all the docs. So they're already there. So it's super easy. If they say, hey, I've uploaded everything, cool, I have it. You can assume that you have it. As long as his says uploaded and it's got an uploaded date, like he's looking at this screen, you got it. Because again, they are connecting directly to this return file. Same thing with the signatures. You know, he can't do any signatures because because the return hasn't been complete. Right. But if I go into this DM doc, there's the data sheet. I can download it. I can print it. And you see everything is filled out on that client data sheet. So having this functionality for them, it makes life really, really easy. And I'll show you, here's the other thing. So let's say a message, they can just send you a message. Documents have been uploaded. And send that message, right? So now they can look at the sent messages and watch this. When we go to dashboard, taxpayer has sent a new message from the client portal. It'll pop on the front screen. Same thing as if a client submits a new return via the My Tax Office mobile app, it'll pop on the front screen under the general notifications. All I have to do is click view returns. It's going to take, I can see, right? And now I can look. Oh, nice. Yay. I'm so glad they updated this. We can see the account name now. We weren't able to see this information before. At your level, you can see the account name. You cannot reset their password. They do have to do that themselves, but you can update their email. So if their email address changes, or if their phone number changes for the two-factor authentication, you can update that information from here now. Which is that is monumentally great as someone who got it recently last year, got a new phone number. I did not realize how many things my phone number was connected to until I started trying to log into my bank. And I can't get a two-factor authentication code because I don't have that phone anymore. My Ring camera, for example, I cannot access it anymore because I don't have that phone anymore. Like I have to call Ring to get them to undo it. So anyway, here's the message, right? The message comes in, you can view it and it says, hey, documents are uploaded. Cool, reply.
Kevin, are we able to, you know how a lot of big office, they have their own client data, right? Are we able to upload that to the portal somehow where the client could fill it out and we get it for our file or something to that effect?
No. And the reason for that is because that process is one of the things I'm trying to work with the engineers on now, because the way the portal works, you already have the client data information. Right, because you can't send them the portal without filling out the client data page.
Right.
So one of the things that I'm asking for with the engineers on that stuff is, can we give them the ability to edit that information?
And sign it, that'd be great.
Right, like if they could just log in and actually make a modification to, for example, their address. Right, if I'm on the dashboard and I see this, can I get an edit button?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Right. If we could get the edit button, that would be great. There's some technical difficulties that we have found trying to get this done. It hasn't quite worked the way we thought it would. But that's one of the things that I will tell you guys. And this is sort of the last piece of this training, because we are basically done at this point. The last piece that I kind of want to share with you guys is the relationship that we have working with these developers.
Yes, please.
There are things that exist in this software because our customers ask for them. Remote signature is something that I specifically asked for. It was not a feature that they had. It was not a feature that they even knew about. But when I found out that the other developer, I'll call them that, the other developer was going to start charging this fee, I knew we had to find an alternative. We had to find another solution. And so I called them. This was in August of 2020, I think, or August of 2019. Geez, it was 2019. It was no, it was in August of 2020 that I called them, because they had already just rolled out whatever they were going to do in 2020. I called them in August of 2020 and I said, hey, this is what's going on. Is this something you think you can do? And they basically said, can you walk us through how it works? And I said, yeah. And so I spent probably 2 hours walking them through all the technical aspects of it, right? And they said, okay, well, how soon do you need it? I was like, if we can have it by the start of tax season, like if we can get it this year, I would be ecstatic. And they were like, oh, no problem. We thought you needed it for the current year by the end of the month. And I was like, wow. That was the middle of August. They thought they could do it in 2 weeks, and they did. It was done about the middle of September. So it took them about a month to get the whole thing worked out, and we had it for that next tax season. There are a variety of things that are in here that are that way. So if there are things that you guys see in the software, things that you want, ask, because we will. You know, if there's something that you guys want in here, that's fine. Ask us, and we will. You know, we will either tell you yes, we're already working on that, or I'll write it up and send it to the engineers. And if the engineers can do it, they do it. It is not quite like working with the previous company where they had a roadmap of stuff that they wanted to get done. And if they could fit your stuff in, then maybe they would do it. Otherwise, no.
Mhm.
These
just-
guys operate very differently. It's if we can do it and it makes sense to do, we'll do it. Even if it's in February. I've had things changed in the software added to the software in February. I don't know any developer in this marketplace that does that in the middle of tax season.
Absolutely. Okay, you cover everything, Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
So last thing, just a couple of announcements real quick, and we should be done. I wanted to let you guys know that we will be sending the recording of this training, so you guys able to go back and see everything that we cover. We will have another training in January, sometime in January. We'll go ahead and confirm that later on when it get close to time. We're going to do another training just like this one. I'm going to try to see if we could cover a little bit on how the mobile app works. I don't know what you think about that, Kevin. So for those of you who want to take advantage of the mobile app that comes with this software, the other thing is please practice. I cannot emphasize that enough. Practice. Let us know. One of the reasons I wanted to do this training is so you guys could kind of make that final decision. Do I want to switch to the online software or stay with what I already have? So now is the time for you guys to make that decision, because December it will be too late. So if you guys want to switch, if you could please send me a text message and let me know, Anna, I'm keeping the software so I can move forward and put you on my list already confirmed. Or if you wanting to switch back to what you had, either or, just text me either way. Also make sure, as you know, we have that group text message that we every year that we continue to send you updates. Make sure you save that to your books, right? My mind just went blank, right? Save our number in your phone, so then you know that it's us, IND, sending you a message, because we send a lot of important updates, right, through those messages. Make sure you text us if you have any question. Also, make sure you update your PTIN. It's that time again to update your PTIN. Make sure you go back and do your bank enrollment. Now that Kevin went over on how to do the bank enrollment, if you're ready to move forward with this software, we already send the bank enrollment to everyone. Add us to your favorite on your email, so that way you make sure you don't miss any of our email, or that also you don't go to junk mail. So again, make sure you do your bank enrollment. It's that time again. It's time to start doing that process. What else? Let us know if you have any question. I think that's it. Yeah, I'm done. I think someone has a question. Let's see. Kevin, the question is this the same for the business software as far as the training goes? That would be for you.
Yeah, the process for doing the return is exactly the same. There's really no difference in that process. You know, you're going to add the new return just like you would any other, you know what I mean? And so when you actually go in and do the business return, you'll see it looks exactly the same. You know, it has all the same things, the work pads, the overrides. The only thing you're not getting out of this one is going to be, you know, the bank product piece.
because they're not able to do a bank product. And for those of you,
Oh, we did get it. I'm glad I was able to confirm that. We do have client portal and we do have remote signature for business.
awesome. And for those of you who purchase both the individual and the business, as you can see, you see how you would just have access to it in the same place where you just click individual or business. If
Yeah,
didn't
you don't have to go.
purchase
You don't have to go anywhere else.
right. So if you didn't purchase the business software, then you will not have that feature there.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly it. You won't have, if you didn't purchase business, you won't have a business tab at all. It won't even show there. So if you did purchase business and you don't see a business tab, confirm with Anna that you did purchase. That's the first thing. And then either Anna or you guys can call in to support, because Anna, if they did purchase business and we happen to miss it, I'm not going to say we're perfect. We can always enable it, and it takes all of 10 seconds as long as it is marked that way on their account. So
I think we got some good feedback from Chanel. She really liked the software, so thank you. That's good to hear. So yes, guys, I love to get to hear your feedback on how you like this new software, because when I tell you, yeah, we really went through a lot to make sure that we could offer another option, especially like Kevin mentioned, when we saw that the other developers were making so much changes with their fees, wanted to make sure that, you know, we look out for you guys. So that's why we went ahead and added this new product. So you guys will have option. So let us know. And Chanel, I will send you the information so you could purchase the business software as well.
Okay, and I just wanted to, if anybody's not with this or kind of in limbo, as for me as a tax preparer using the other software, this one obviously kind of saves you a few as far as the signature prices. And also because the audits are huge this year, you know, the notes and all of those things, this makes it way easier.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer, and I think if anybody's kind of in limbo, that they should definitely go with this one and just save themselves the stress.
I agree, and I want to add to that like I said, I mean I had 25 accounts that I worked directly with that switched from that desktop software to the online software, and I have no one wanting to move back.
Yeah.
I had a couple that were sort of on the fence when January come, but again, those are the people that showed up late. That's what I think. If you get in it early, it's a whole lot easier, you know, than trying to learn everything when you're under the gun. You know, when you've got people in your waiting room and you're still trying to figure out how do I process a bank product. If you get in there early, it makes life a whole lot easier. And like I said, by the end of January, I called everybody and they were ready to renew. So
thank you, Jill C. I see that you love it. I'm so glad that you do. And one last thing, guys. I know a lot of you are used to calling me and Janet for questions with the setup and everything. I'm gonna put it out there now. We call support first because you're gonna probably be more likely to get a better help with them when it comes to this system, because Janet and I are also still learning everything. We're not as a pro like we are with the desktop. So if you could call support first, because they will give you the same help as we give you. And again, if you have any trouble, you can always call us if we need to call support for you guys. So yeah, try calling support for any setup question that you have, because we may probably be the one, we probably be sending you back to them for a lot of things.
yeah, well, truthfully, the setup is so easy that there's really not much to it. Most of the setup is done for you guys when you get the software. Just pay attention to the dashboard. When you first log in, there's going to be some pop-ups, right? The first one is update your P10.
Oh, I love it.
You need to come in. You need to come in and update this P10 because we have to put a placeholder. We don't know what your P10 is, right? So we put a placeholder in when the account is created. So you do want to make sure that you update that. That's why we have it on this, you know, on the dashboard as one of the things that pops up. The second is that EFIN summary verification. So if you need help with that, we'll help you. It's not hard. It's just sometimes I have found the hardest part of getting into e-services for most people. Once you get into e-services, everything is pretty easy from that point. It's just getting in there sometimes is difficult. For
Kevin,
the
it's
for-
really, really important before I forget, and I'm sure probably this often go through people's head. So I have clients who has, how do the client do it so they don't have their prepare logging into the system from their home?
they would have to put an IP security restriction in, and I'd want to get with them directly, either Chris or I.
Okay, so you guys, if that's something that is a concern of you, that you want to make sure that you're prepared, it's not logging into the system from outside of the office, make sure you talk to support about that. So they could go ahead and put that restriction for you. But also in the flip side, you know, this is also a good advantage of having this software, because now you could have people working from home for you. You could hire prepared to work from home for you. You know, and it's a plus. It's a plus.
It is inevitable that we are going to experience, especially those of you in Houston, that we are going to experience at least one day where we can't get to the office because of weather.
Right.
So instead of having to shut down and lose business for that day, you can keep operating. You know, there are still things that you can do. You can still get returns out. You can still file amendments. You know what I mean? You can still have your staff working in a way that they're not actually losing that day. So I can tell you when COVID hit and you know, and we all prayed that that never happens again. When the shutdowns happened, the people that were on this software didn't miss a beat. They didn't have to do anything but go home, log in, email their clients and say, hey, send me this, you know, do whatever they needed to do on that in terms of communication. But in terms of the software, they were clean. It was super fast, super easy. Just as support was, we didn't miss a beat at all. And that's because we were built in a way that allowed us to be remote, because that's the way we were built. You know, we have inclement weather, we have hurricanes. I promise you, not that clients don't care, but our clients in New York and California don't care that we had a hurricane. If they've got a client in front of them who can't file their tax return because they're getting a rejection or whatever, you know what I mean? The business has to continue to operate just because, you know, even though there's inclement weather. And so we have always done that. And this software will help you guys be able to do that as well. So I wanted to add that point.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Anybody has any questions? If not, we're done. We're done. So again, don't forget, send us a text message. Let us know, yay, we're keeping this. No, change me back, so that way we could go ahead and get started with the paperwork. Thank you, Kevin, so much. You
course.
were amazing as always. Thank you. And thank you guys for your patience and for really making the time to be in this training, because I know it'll make it easy for us as well. Thank you. You have a good day.